because if you're new around here, you need to know two things about me. Number one, I love shadow daddies. Number two, it's a toss-up on which one I love more, but I love dragons. I love them. Even though this one's dead, I still love it. And it got me so excited. And now I am praying to the Corcoran that living dragons get introduced into this book.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Booked on Fantasy podcast.
I'm Madison.
I'm Lorraine, and we are two best friends who explore the world of fantasy through book shows and movies, but with a heavy emphasis on books. We're very excited to bring you episode 2 of Quicksilver today. Honestly, there's so much theorizing and there's so many details to get to. I feel like the world and the info about the magic system and everything has just been expanding pretty quickly. So there's a lot to think about and consider, and that's been a lot of fun. As a quick reminder, we will be discussing chapters 7 through 12 specifically, but since we are starting a brand new book and neither Addison nor I have read Quicksilver before, you will not be getting any spoilers for the rest of the book or series. Furthermore, we would like to remind everyone that this is an adult podcast where we will have adult conversations. Explicit language or potentially triggering topics may be discussed, so please be mindful of that and adjust accordingly. Housekeeping. Our next Quicksilver episode will cover chapters 13 through 17. Next, we do have some reviews to share. This first one is from Bria Solo, and it said, seeing a book series that I've read multiple times through the eyes of people reading it for the first time is so much fun. Having experienced that through TOG, I can attest that is true. Even though we're not done with TOG yet, we've gotten further enough along that it's fun to look at people that are just starting Throne of Glass for the first time, because we could be like, oh, there's so much in store for you.
Oh, I know. I feel like a disciple of SJM every time I see someone on Calm or Tab, and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, do you want to talk about it? Do you want to be best friends?
So true. And then we have a second one. This is from Jessica Ash, and it said, it's my own personal book club I attend on my commute to work. I love how Addison and Lorraine break up the chapters and how each episode follows the same path. I enjoy the chapter summaries, as I tend to read through, so it's nice to go back and listen to a brief summary of what I read. And when they dive in a little more, it gives me the opportunity to redigest, so it truly does feel like a book club as it is discussion-based. I look forward to reading the TOG series alongside Addison and Lorraine, and I can't wait to hear their feedback. Yay! Thank you, Jessica. So thank you both for your awesome reviews. We really do love hearing from y'all, and truly the best thing that you can do if you love the pod is to leave us a rating or a written review. So next, we are very excited to be attending the Rebels and Realms Book Convention taking place July 16th through 19th of 2026 in Rogers, Arkansas. It's been our dream to attend book conventions and do live events, so we are thrilled to be able to attend one in person. Tickets are on sale for early bird pricing up through October 31st, so make sure to get your tickets ahead of time. We'll link the website in our episode description below, and we just want you guys to live a little with us, so do it. Get those tickets. All right, so last little housekeeping update. This isn't really an update, but I thought I'd switch it up and add in some reading and TBR updates that coincide with spooky season and fall vibes. So I recently finished Tourist Season on audiobook, and I recommend it because it was just a really fun dual POV read. It's a dark romance by Bryn Reaver, who is the author of Butcher and Blackbird, which is part of the Ruinous Love trilogy, and all 3 books of that are out in the series now. I haven't finished the 3rd one in that one yet, but the premise of Tourist Season centers on Harper Starling, who is the town of Cape Carthage's secret protective murderer, and she takes care of troublesome tourists. Her mysterious past catches up to her.
Whoa.
I told you it was a dark romance, okay? Her mysterious past catches up to her when Nolan Rhodes arrives in Cape Carthage seeking revenge against her for her past. But the truth is not what he thinks. Harper and Nolan are forced to make an alliance when a hobbyist true crime investigator arrives ready to throw open the lid on all of the town's suspicious disappearances. So, highly recommend.
Ooh.
In addition, I've started a new adult dark academia romantasy book called Arcana Academy by Elise Koba. I'm about 30% into this book, and so far I really like it. We've got a magic academy that kind of gives Harry Potter vibes with like the different houses. You have a tarot card based magic system, and it's supposed to have some enemies to lovers action. And I've really enjoyed it so far. I'm kind of in like a dark academia mood right now. I feel like that fits really well with just fall season and everything. So I've been adding a lot of books kind of like in that genre to my TBR. But as far as the rest of my fall TBR goes, I've got sort of a weird spread here. I mentioned wanting to try like a monster romance vibe a couple months ago at this point. So Kiss of the Basilisk by Lindsay Straub is on here. And then I have Alchemized by Senlin Yu. This is, I think, a newer book that's more recent. And I've seen it a lot kind of like on the book community space on social media, so I added that in. I also have Legendborn by Tracy Dion, Blood Over Brighthaven by Emma Wong, and then, I don't know, I think it's Anathema, that's how you say it, by Carrie Lake. So that's my current fall reading plan outside of our reading for the podcast. But if y'all have any other recommendations or an opinion about which book to check out next after Arcana Academy, then definitely DM us or email us. We're pretty active on social media, so you can usually catch us there. And we just like to hear from you guys, so feel free.
Well, damn, that was impressive. My TBR is read the next set of chapters for Quicksilver and finish the notes as soon as fucking possible. So you really made me look bad.
No. I was going to ask if you had any reading updates. Obviously, you finished Crescent City 3 recently, so.
I did, finally. You know, I had started it so long ago, and it wasn't bad. I just got distracted and busy, so I DNF'd, but I knew I would go back to it. And so then when I restarted it, I don't know if it's because I'd like pre-read a little bit or I don't know why, but I just blew through it. And that's a really long audiobook. If you guys have listened to it, it's like almost 30 hours. So that took quite a bit of time. I really liked it. You know, I know CC3 is SJM's more controversial series. I know people don't always love it, but I actually liked it a lot. I mean, there were a few elements I would change or, you know, parts that dragged for me. But I mean, that's true with most books. But I really liked it. I liked the way it ended. I was happy. I was satisfied. I was like, okay, you know, happily ever after, maybe. I think it's confirmed there is going to be a CC4, though. So I'm curious to see which direction that goes. And of course, I enjoyed the crossover with ACOTAR and all that. So yeah, I have been toying with the idea of starting Zodiac Academy. Several of our listeners have talked to us about that.
That's
their
kind of
experience
like
with Zodiac Academy. And I'm like, should I do it? Should we take the leap, guys? Tell us. Should we do it? Because literally everyone I've ever talked to about it is like, oh my God, it's fucking trash. It's terrible. I'm obsessed with it. Just go ahead and do it. And I'm like, okay, but you're saying two very incongruous things. Like you're saying it's trash, but definitely do it. You know, and I'm like, what do I do with
Zodiac
that?
Academy, or like the way I've categorized it in my head is that it's kind of like the reality TV of book series and like kind of broken. Like it's very dramatic. There's kind of a lot going on. The writing's not necessarily super cohesive, but you like can't stop reading because of the drama and the situation with the characters, I guess, and like stuff that's going on with them. Or that's been my impression based off of what I've heard about it. So could be fun.
Maybe I'll do it. If enough of you message us, I will commit to starting Zodiac Academy. We probably won't cover it on the pod because we've got a lot going on, but I will live post my
I'm a little hesitant about it just
want.
because it's so long. I feel like it's a commitment. There's like a lot of books in that series. So that's my only hang up. But yeah, let us know. What should we read? What should we cover in the future? Definitely, if you guys haven't started Crescent City, highly recommend, just because I think that is the series that really ties together all of SJM's different series. You really start to see the connection between Throne of Glass, ACOTAR, and it sets you up for those things to kind of connect together. So
yeah, we're not making any announcements or confirming anything, but ACOTAR 6 is coming out at some point. We may or may not talk about that on this podcast, and you kind of got to read Crescent City to jive with that. So you have to journey through the math first. You just have to do it. You may want to start now because they're fat books. They're pretty big.
All right, so that kind of wraps up our housekeeping for now, and let's get into the episode. We'll start with the book report for chapter summaries, and then we'll dive into an analysis and offer theories for each chapter, and finally, we will share our favorite moments. With that being said, Addison, please give us the book report.
Happily. Chapter 7. Everlayne led Saeris to the Grand Hall of the Winter Palace where a horde of Fae and King Belikon awaited her arrival. In her usual fashion, Saeris attempted defiance and outrage, but Belikon silenced her. giving her no choice but to agree to the task at hand. Saeris was to spend her days in the library learning the Fae customs and learning how to activate the Quicksilver. Belikon dismissed Saeris, but before she could leave, she was stopped when a Belikon summoned the dog. A group of Fae guards brought in none other than, quote-unquote, Death, the Fae male that had saved Saeris and brought her to Avelia. But he was different this time, thrashing like a rabid animal. As the crowd got a clear view of his face, they erupted, shouting, Living Curse, Bane of Gilthry, Kingfisher, Kingfisher, Kingfisher. Everlayne immediately tensed beside Saeris, and she couldn't help but notice the pageantry of this whole mock trial just seemed off. A desperate Everlayne begged Malwae, an elder Fae female, to intervene, and so she did. She approached Belikon and pretended to receive a prophecy from the ancient sword Saeris had pulled from the Quicksilver. The trick worked, and with the help of Renfis' suggestion to send Kingfisher to the front line to help turn the tide of war, Belikon reluctantly agreed to release Kingfisher. Renfis, Lane, Kingfisher, and Saeris convened in the hallway, and it was decided they would begin Saeris' training the next day. Chapter 8. Early the next morning, Everlayne laced Saeris into an uncomfortably tight corset and led her to an enormous and stunning library. There she met Rusarius, the master of the library, who was adorably bookish and apparently does not get innuendos. Kingfisher was also in the library, and he and Saeris and Everlayne had a brief but tense conversation about the likelihood of Hayden and Elroy still being alive. They were interrupted by Renfis, who did in fact appreciate a good innuendo. Everlayne insisted that they get started, and Kingfisher asked Saeris if she'd ever channeled a metal's energy before, and if she had any experience working in a forge. Chapter 9. Kingfisher, Everlayne, Renfis, and Saeris all made their way towards the forge in the Winter Palace. As they walked, Kingfisher and Everlayne argued over the right way to begin to train Saeris. Kingfisher gave Saeris the quick, dirty, and shameful history of Avelia, and this sent Lane over the edge. An upset Lane took off, and Renfis followed, giving Saeris a choice. She could go with Renfis to comfort Lane or follow Kingfisher to ask questions and learn the truth of this strange new land she found herself in. Surprise, surprise, Aro Shaleth chose to go with Kingfisher. They found the forge in an absolute state of ruin, and Kingfisher lectured Saeris on how his magic was a sacred gift only to be used for righteous purposes. They got to work, and as they did, Saeris asked Kingfisher several questions about his relic and the Quicksilver. Several hours later, Renfis arrived and asked them why they hadn't started yet, and annoyed Saeris began to explain that the forge had been a wreck when suddenly she was encased in darkness. Shadow Daddy alert! When the darkness dissipated, the forge was sparkling clean, made new by Fisher's magic. Chapter 10. The next morning, a slighted Everlayne brought breakfast to Saeris' room, but it turns out all it took was a quick apology from Saeris and all was right as rain. Everlayne and Saeris headed towards the library, and somebody hold Rusarius' beer because Renfis and Kingfisher were both eating some mystery meat for breakfast in the library of all places. Forget about crumbs, we're talking about grease, y'all, and that shit stings. Everlayne, of course, tries to intervene, and as usual, Kingfisher gets pissy and leaves. Everlayne and Saeris spend the day in the library researching and learning the basics of alchemy, which it turns out is not a lot. Basically, the alchemists didn't document their practices, and there was a lot of debate on how it worked. And oh, if you weren't careful, you could easily go mad and kill yourself. Kingfisher interrupted them and took Saeris to the forge, where a hot-headed Saeris decided she was going to fuck with Kingfisher and asked him about the size of his hardware. Things escalate when Kingfisher grabs Saeris' hand and places a bead of Quicksilver in her palm, testing her to see if she can work through the pain and then quiet it. Miraculously, Saeris was able to do it. Kingfisher mused that he was expecting his test to go a little differently when Saeris Fane punched Kingfisher square in the mouth. He deserved that shit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Chapter 11. An angry Lane shoved Saeris into another corset and scolded her for being reckless enough to punch a Fae warrior. The dress was beautiful, and Saeris fucking hated it. But according to Lane, Saeris was too pretty for pants. Lane repeatedly tried to get Saeris to explain what happened that compelled her to punch Fisher, but Saeris refused to tell her, not wanting to strain their challenging relationship any further. The conversation turned more serious as Lane told her about her past with Fisher and how he and their mother came to be part of the Everlayne court. In an attempt to change the subject, Lane offered to go get them breakfast before they headed to the library, and when Saeris heard a knock at the door, she did not expect to see Kingfisher standing there. He invited himself in and quickly began devouring his breakfast, which made his lip bleed, which drove Saeris Fane absolutely insane. Then my absolute worst fear about being Fae came true. Fisher, using his keen sense of smell, detected Saeris' attraction and then mercilessly began to tease her. If that wasn't embarrassing enough, Lane appeared and asked why the hell it smelled like a brothel. Guys, my face is literally burning right now. I'm so red thinking about it. I'm so uncomfy. To both mine and Saeris' surprise, Fisher didn't use the opportunity to embarrass Saeris further and instead covered for her. They headed to the library where Saeris spent the day pretending to be intently engaged with Rusarius' lessons while she was really forming her plan to return home. But there was one thing she had to do first. Make out with Fisher, apparently. I don't blame her. If I was about to leave, I'd do it too. Chapter 12. Saeris arrived at the forge, and for the first time in almost a week, she felt warm. But the heat from the fire wasn't the only thing making her hot. Kingfisher was drenched in sweat as he worked the forge, and of course, it was not distracting Saeris at all. Saeris and Fisher were just about to start their experiment when, holy gods, what the hell was that thing? Turns out it was an adorable fuzzy fox with a nasty bite. Saeris refused to let Fisher kill the fox, and he eventually relented and used his magic to conjure a cage for the thing. With the fox secured, they tried to bind the bone to the Quicksilver, but it didn't work. Saeris was angry, hot, and tired, and so she decided it was now or never to execute her plan. She asked Fisher if she could hold the relic to see if she could sense what other material it was made with. And, of course, the innuendos were innuendoing, and this scene was hot and steamy. And it was not because they were in a blazing forge. Saeris came close enough to Fisher to touch him, and it was pretty much game over for our girl after that. She didn't sense anything in the relic, but she did decide to go ahead and kiss Kingfisher. Might as well, since she was already there, you know what I'm saying? But the kiss didn't last long, and Saeris, angry at herself for wanting Fisher, threw herself back, demanding that he go and get Renfis to walk her back to her rooms. All the while, her heart still beat wildly in her chest. Thum, 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 thum. And that concludes the book report. Woo! What a place to end. What a place to end.
Actually, there is no tension. It was just like straight up to the point.
That's so true. There was no like, I want you, I don't. It was like, I want you and I'm going to have you, okay? Saeris went for what she wanted.
I like it. It was kind of refreshing instead of like letting it
I think so
I mean,
too.
I do love a good slow burn, but like,
let's just get to the point, Let's not dance around
it. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that excellent book report. And without further ado, let's get into the analysis, starting with some overarching thoughts.
So something that I noticed that I really like about this book so far is that we get a lot of answers very, very quickly. Callie Hart did not beat around the bush and make every single damn thing a mystery that slowly unfolds. But at the same time, she was still giving us enough hints and details along the way that still keeps the story intriguing. There's my buzzword again, intriguing. But I'm sorry, it's true. As we were just kind of talking about with the romance, I find it very refreshing, actually. I like a slow burn. I like things to be revealed in time. I mean, obviously, that's literally what TOG is in 8 books. But it's kind of nice just to get a bunch of info very quickly and then kind of use that to frame things that happen in the story while still wondering, what about this and what about this part of the story? And I really like that. It makes speculating more fun in a way because you have enough details to actually formulate theories that may be realistic or correct, as opposed to like pulling it out of thin air.
Well, I still do that. You guys will see.
Well, you're special. You're different, Lorraine. Okay, you're a different breed of person.
But no, I totally agree with that point, especially because it makes you wonder, like, okay, if we're already getting this information so quickly, how is this going to progress or like what's going to happen? Because there is still mystery, of course, but like it's a good balance, I think, between details and mystery, but also progression pretty quickly. So
I think so too. I mean, it just moves quick. It flies through, and I enjoyed that. So also, I'll give you 3 guesses on what I want to say about Kingfisher. Yep, you probably guessed it. Let's just say I think I'm really going to enjoy his character. Let me just say that. I ain't mad about it. I ain't mad about him.
We like him a lot. So I thought this set of chapters was both cheeky and fun because we got to see more of Kingfisher's personality and this flirty, fun dynamic between Saeris and him too. It's pretty clear that there's a vibe between them at minimum. So I enjoyed all the banter, the energy that we get pretty early on in the book. Like we talked about, she does not slow roll that at all. Like, bam, making out in a forge. So I enjoyed that. And okay, honestly, I don't know if my brain is just more in like a theorizing state with this book, but I feel like we continuously get, as we talked about, more breadcrumbs and information, and it always gets my mind racing. So in today's set of chapters, I particularly liked getting more context about the gods, alchemy, and then their experimentation with the Quicksilver. And I have many ideas to present you all with today. So I hope you enjoy. Buckle up. All right, so that concludes our overarching thoughts, and let's get into the chapters, starting with chapter 7.
The title of this chapter is The Dog. This is a reference to Kingfisher and how Belikon often refers to him as the dog.
As Everlayne leads Saeris through the Winter Palace to meet with the king, I did find it hilarious that Saeris thinks the palace made Madra's royal seat in Zilvaren look like a rundown backwater hovel. Because I was like, I mean...
Damn.
But I ain't mad about it because, like, Madra sucks, so it's fine. Also, I thought it was interesting that even though there is sunlight, it's noted the light itself was devoid of any warmth and nothing at all like the punishing glare of the twins. And I know there's some magic behind the weather and the coolness of the Winter Palace, but it's interesting that even something natural like sunlight doesn't seem to do anything against the cold. It's truly as if the entirety of the Winter Palace is like in this little winter dome, kind of like a snow globe.
So do you think that the winter weather is part of a curse or it's just part of the geographic world building?
I don't know yet. I kind of am inclined to think it's just part of the world building with the Winter Palace because we do get some details later about the existence of other courts, and Saeris kind of asked about that too. So I think at this time, that's just how the Winter Palace is. What do you think?
I think so, too. I think you're right.
We're in agreement.
But remains to be seen.
Fair.
Well, I mean, I know since like a curse on the Fae as a whole has been introduced, it kind of opens a door for like, did the curse have other implications?
Right.
So that's why I was just kind of curious. But no, I think it's more geographic at this time.
Yeah. Next, we also get a Godwatch update. Saeris asks Everlayne about a group of stone figures whom she informs her are statues of the gods, and they're collectively referred to as Corcoran. So just briefly, before we go over what we learn about the gods themselves, I wanted to note that Saeris mentions the people of Zilvaren stopped worshipping the gods a long time ago and that Madra was the closest thing they had to a god. Her believers carry strands of her hair and ash from funeral pyres of the living sacrifices that are burned in her honor within their plague bags, believing that this will give them never-ending life if they're worthy enough. So first of all, it's kind of gross that they carry Madra's hair around in a little bag. I feel like burning living sacrifices should be sufficient enough, not important. But second, last week we were talking about whether Madra did something to her guards to enhance them in some way, and I feel like the line about never-ending life, if they're worthy, kind of adds that speculation. Perhaps there is a way for anyone to extend their lifespan regardless of whether they're magical or not. I guess just like a regular human could do it if they wanted to with the right access.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. I think that aligns with what Heron said in chapter 5 with the whole I can't die, she won't let me go thing. I definitely think there's something funky going on with Madra and probably her guards as well. So
we don't get too much more info about Madra, but while Everlayne insists she is just a human, the Book Down Fantasy podcast remains thoroughly suspicious of that fact, since the fact that she's chosen to let them, the gods, vanish from her people's history speaks volumes about her corruption. And this continues to highlight the fact that there is much more to Madra in her history with becoming queen of the Fae and now with the gods as well. Not to mention, even Saeris wonders how the Fae and Avelia know of Madra and that Everlayne spoke like she was familiar with her.
Here. I agree. I don't believe for 1 second she's human. Well, actually, I think I actually contradict myself in this episode now that I'm thinking about it. But I don't know. If I do, just ignore that. I think she probably started out as human.
Oh,
okay. But through whatever dark magic or alchemy she has corrupted, her soul is no longer, right? As would it be indicated by her life. I think you talk about her maybe being Fae, and I don't think that she is Fae. So we'll talk about that when we get there. But I don't think she can be considered human anymore.
Right.
I don't know if she's Fae, but she's definitely done something magical to alter herself. So she's some sort of amalgamation of dark magic and whatever else she's made of. Not sugar and spice and everything nice, okay?
Definitely something has changed. She's altered herself somehow. I guess we've hit like a little bit of a fork in the road. I feel like the evidence seems to suggest that she's Fae, but like, I guess we'll see. I mean, it very well could just be that she has access to immortality, like somehow specifically, and that's the extent of it. But yeah, there's a lot of questions about Madra per usual. So with all the other little details out of the way, now we can talk about the gods. Everlayne first names 6 different gods who are as follows. You have Styx, the god of shadows, Kirin, the god of secrets. Okay, then, guys, I'm a little iffy on the pronunciation here. I can't remember how to say it, even though I listened to the audiobook. Forgive me. Nick and I, I'll get it for the next episode. But This one is the goddess of mass. Then we have Malleus, the god of dawn and new beginnings. And then we get two beautiful females who are typically thought of as one god. And this brings us to Balmithyn, goddess of the sky. So Saeris immediately recognizes the familiarity of Balmithyn's names with the names of Zilvaren's twin sons, Belia and Min. According to legend, a storm came and Balmithyn refused to take shelter. Instead, she weathered the storm's lightning strikes, which eventually split her into two. So Bal is the goddess of the sun or day, and Mithyn is the goddess of the moon or night. So obviously this really stuck out because last episode, I did find it pretty interesting that there are two suns in Zilvaren, and we kind of talked about how it's odd that there's no mentioning of the moon. And I wonder if there does need to be some sort of restoration of the moon and the gods in Zilvaren to break some sort of like desert heat curse that exists. Okay, that was a little bit of a tin hat theory here, but obviously what happened in history to make people forget that they used to be both a sun and a moon god together and change it to two suns separately is interesting. And it makes me wonder, was it related to the Fae being cut off from Zilvaren when the Quicksilver portals were closed? Or just like, obviously, how did this happen? Regardless, there's an increasing sense that the gods will become a larger part of the story and plot. Also, to hone in on one in particular, the god of shadows, Styx, was interesting to me because Kingfisher, who we learned a lot more about in this set of chapters, clearly has some sort of shadowy type of power. And that makes me wonder if some of the gifts or magic of the Fae can be traced back to the gods, or if perhaps the gods like favor certain characters in the story. Just kind of based off of our fantasy experience thus far, that's a thing sometimes in books, and so it makes me curious.
I mean, it stands to reason if they say God's curse, they would also say God's blessed, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if a God is blessing you, what are they blessing you with, you know? So, I like this idea a lot, personally. The connection between Kingfisher and Styx is really interesting. We talked about this in the first episode, but we really know very little about the magic in this realm, and we've been exposed to a very limited amount of type of powers. So, it's very possible that different powers and magical abilities are aligned with certain gods. I mean, I think the only magic we know of is Saeris's and Kingfisher's, and that's it. We know Madra is doing something with magic, but we don't really know what. So I think there's a lot of wiggle room on theories there.
Last but not least, we are also introduced to Zareth, the god of chaos and change, who is superstitiously regarded as the god whose attention they least want. And so it's custom to rub the foot of a statue so as to like guide him away from them. Saeris decides to follow Everlayne's example with Zareth, but I definitely do feel that there are going to be some kind of big changes coming for Saeris and with the plot. Zareth definitely wants to be up in people's business, and he ain't about to be distracted again. So if the gods do end up playing a bigger role, I feel like this specific noting of Zareth means he will be important moving forward.
See, you're coming in hot with the real analysis, and I was coming in with the jokes. Okay? I was just going to say that I think that Zareth definitely has his gaze trained exclusively on Saeris at the moment, because that poor girl has been through it. Okay, her life is pure chaos right now.
He wants to be up in the business. He wants to be involved with Saeris, and that's important. Also, as a side note, I looked up what Corcoran means because I thought it was interesting that Everlayne collectively referred to all the gods as the Corcoran. If anybody has any context to provide or add to this, feel free to DM us. But the word is of Irish origin, and it descends from the Irish word corcra, which means purple, and it's associated with royalty or high status. The high status royalty thing seems pretty on par with the gods, but I do wonder if purple will come into play in some kind of like more prominent role somehow. Perhaps if the gods do return, the court or something will involve purple colors. I don't know. Notably, the butterflies on the front cover have purple in them, and so that also makes me wonder if those are somehow connected to this idea.
That's so funny that you looked it up because I also did, and I got a similar definition, but I also got that its origins can also mean ruddy, which literally means having a healthy color and is usually in reference to someone's complexion. I clicked around on it for a little while, but I didn't feel like there was a clear connection from the actual, literal definition of Corcoran or implied meaning. Honestly, I think it's just a cool word that Callie Hart chose, to be totally frank. I looked up a lot of like the sword names and the dragon's name, and I was just kind of like, no. I think she took inspiration from, Irish culture, but I think mostly she was just like, this word is great. and picked it.
Okay. We'll see.
We'll see. And Lorraine doesn't like that. She wants there to be
I
a
want there to
connection.
be something. Exactly. I know. I have a lot of like bias coming in here.
In relation to the Corcoran, Everlayne speaks of how the Fae collectively pray that the Corcoran will return, which implies they were once an integral part of the landscape. So my question now is, where the hell did they go and why? And if they're literal gods, why couldn't they come back? Like, even if something bad happened to them, and if they were all together, like their powers combined. So I'm starting to suspect that may become part of the plot of this series, especially after learning what we do about the Quicksilver portals in the set of chapters about how people got lost, people got sent to weird places. I mean, the Quicksilver's been stilled for 1,000 years, so it is possible. And we get that one little line, which we'll talk about later, about how they went on a pilgrimage. But I'm like, maybe they were on this pilgrimage when the Quicksilver was stilled and they're stuck wherever. But then it's like, why have they come back? I don't know. I got a lot of questions about the Corcoran, but I'm starting to think that may become like a major plot point. Like maybe Saeris will be involved in helping find them, free them, something to that
and
effect.
Also, like, typically gods are like kind of all-powerful beings, right? So how is it that they don't have any control over Quicksilver, or like they can't use it to their advantage too? It seems like only an alchemist or only somebody with that specific magical ability can interact with the Quicksilver. I don't know. Lots of questions about that situation.
Yeah. Got a lot of questions.
So they continue through the palace, where Saeris takes note of the wide variety of looks of the various Fae people in the palace and the extreme chilliness as well, though she seems to be the only one who's actually affected by the cold. Notably, Everlayne mentions that they use magic to cast wards all over Avelia to keep the cold at bay. And this was interesting because it implies that it would be much colder without magic. But I'm definitely noticing that Zilvaren and Avelia seem to be polar opposites. And those are some of the main settings that we've been exposed to so far in the book. So that makes me wonder if perhaps they're actually supposed to be connected to help balance each other out. Plus, they have this shared religious history with Balmithin and then Balmia and Min. So I feel like that kind of like adds to this idea.
Speaking to the whole kind of juxtaposition between the weather, this is probably not important at all. It is most likely because Saeris comes from a place that is scorching hot and the suns literally don't set. But I thought it was interesting that Saeris is quite literally over here fighting for her life, teeth chattering at all. And Everlayne seems completely unbothered and even tells Saeris to quit being dramatic. She's like, really? She's like, come on now, you know? And so I wonder if that's a human versus Fae thing, or I've just grown up here, so I'm used to the cold, or maybe it has something to do with her magic and her sensitivity. It's probably nothing, but you know what? We're going to note it, okay?
And it's kind of weird because you'd almost expect that Saeris would take to it because of the whole her mother describing her as her ice storm and Saeris being like this cool, dark I don't know. Something weird is going on with that too. So we got our eye on it, okay? Don't you worry. So they finally make it to the grand hall of the Avelian court. And while the grandness of it was cool, I guess, it was even cooler when we get details about a giant dragon skull. So apparently it belonged to the last dragon in existence, who was named Omnom Shakrai. What a name.
I thought it was Omnom Shakri.
It could be.
Well, shit. We'll figure it out. We'll learn it, okay? Don't come for us.
I think
we'll
there's
get
a pronunciation guide in the front of the book, actually, plus the audiobook. But again, I've forgotten. It has left my brain.
I always am like, okay, I'm going to remember this for the episode, like, no problem. And then we get here and I'm like,
right.
What?
Okay, this is like totally random, but I feel like, however, regardless of whether it was right or wrong, however I tried to pronounce a word first tends to be the thing that like sticks in my brain, and I can't unlearn it. It takes me like 10 times to get it right for some reason. You know what I mean?
That is so true. Yes.
Anyway.
Whoops. Well, with a name like Omnom Shakri, that's pretty...
It's a mouthful.
It's a pretty big name.
So obviously, lots of questions from that. What happened to all the dragons? Will they come back into the storyline at some point? And what specifically happened to Omnom Shakri?
No, I can't stop thinking about it. Okay. It was at this point that I sat straight up and pulled my book closer to my face, because if you're new around here, you need to know two things about me. Number one, I love shadow daddies. Number two, it's a toss-up on which one I love more, but I love dragons. I love them. Even though this one's dead, I still love it. And it got me so excited. And now I am praying to the Corcoran that living dragons get introduced into this book.
I wonder if like that'll be part of the lore or like the curse situation is like bringing back dragons again.
Oh God, I hope so. Oh my God, don't tease me. Okay, don't tease me.
Can you imagine Kingfisher, Shadow Daddy Kingfisher riding on a
dragon? Whew. Okay, I'm gonna need to go take a quick cold shower.
Anyways, everything about this meeting seems super intimidating with the hundreds of Fae just seated in the hall watching. But Saeris is finally introduced to King Belikon and some of the other court members seated on the dais alongside him. Notably, the king is holding the sword Saeris pulled from the ground in Maudra's Hall of Mirrors, but I also found the description of one of the men next to the king kind of notable. This man is named Aureus? Goddamn. Okay, every single name this way.
Aureus sounds right. Yeah, wow, we really botched this. I think it's
Aureus.
Aureus, yeah.
It said he was gaunt, sickly looking, his skin as pale and thin as parchment. A network of blue veins snaked across his cheeks like lashes of forked lightning. Maybe he's just real old. He's an old fae. He's lived a long time. It's starting to wear on his looks, but something about his description kind of sticks out in an ominous way, especially like relative to everybody else.
Yeah, he definitely does sound ominous. I also took note of it because in a lot of fantasy books, the Fae are immortal and usually quit physically aging around the age of 28, which seems to be the case with like Everlayne and Fisher. And the conversation that Saeris and Everlayne have about her age seems to indicate that the Fae in this series are definitely extremely long-lived, like thousands of years. But Aureus' condition also indicates that they seem to age physically. So, I mean, it's obviously a very lengthy process, right? Because Everlayne looks like she's 28, but is 1,500 years old. Right. So Fisher is like 1,800 years old, and he looks about 30. And so Aureus has to be like
3,000.
Five, six.
Oh, yeah, probably longer than that.
Yeah, I mean, like multiple thousands. You're sort of trying to create a scale of numbers, in math. I'm not good at that. Don't ask me to do that. But I don't know. So I thought that was interesting that they're not really immortal in the sense that they never die. Right. But they do seem to age, which is interesting. Just extremely slow.
Or okay, so we did get the notes. I just had this thought. It didn't click for me until now. But later on, we get the notes about how the Fae in the past used to have that blood curse thing going on. So what if this dude is one that he's been starved? Like maybe he needs some blood. And he's like,
oh,
I don't know.
I don't know. We're getting wild here.
It's weird though.
But he's creepy as fuck. That's what you need to know. He's creepy as fuck.
As Belikon addresses Saeris, it's also stuck out to me that only 3 of the 6 seats on the dais are occupied, and that the other person sitting there is an ancient woman with thick gray hair and gnarled hands dressed in white. We'll come back to her in a second because she is definitely important, but I do wonder why there's only 3 people for this court meeting instead of 6. Maybe it has something to do with representatives of the gods, but I guess that kind of depends on whether you count Balmithan as 1 or 2 gods. So Saeris makes it extremely clear that she is not one for the rules and respecting someone simply because they are royalty. Bold move considering she's the only human among a palace of magical fae, but carry on, Saeris.
The one thing I love about her, she gives 0 fucks. She don't care about nothing. I love that when Aureus asked her, do you not bow before a king creature? And Saeris immediately popped up with, he isn't my king. And I was like, damn. I was like, okay, well, she's right. He is not her king. Yeah. So Belikon goes on to inform Saeris that she is there to fulfill a specific task. But before he can tell her, she interrupts him. Of course, everyone in the room is stunned because you do not interrupt a king. Saeris thinks about how she really doesn't care if Belikon is going to kill her. She thinks, I'd come this close to dying, and yes, it had sucked, but I wasn't afraid of death anymore. I was angry and I wanted answers. And I brought this up for a very specific reason that is set up for some other notes I have in this set of chapters, and probably for the rest of the book. And it's pretty stupid. I'm just going to tell you that it's pretty stupid. But I've noticed that Callie Hart integrates some modern phrases from our language into the dialogue, which are kind of incongruous with the whole ancient fae, sword fighting, magic, and curses world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, name another fantasy book where a character was like, oh man, that sucked. True. It's not a bad thing at all. It's just something I've noticed. And now when I hear something more modern, it just kind of itches my brain and then I feel the need to bring it up. I think there's like 2 or 3 more times that she does that. But it's just funny, like this ancient magical mythical place. And then Saeris is like, man, that sucked.
Yeah.
It doesn't really fit. But I like it because it's relatable. But I'm just going to point it out now. So that was my setup for that.
That's funny. I think it depends. I wasn't really bothered by it. I think at first I notice it, but it's one of those things that I kind of just get used to and then I don't care anymore. I feel like, for example, Onyx Storm, what's the series called? Why can I know? Oh, the Empyrean series uses pretty modern language. Like Crescent City is kind of more urban and modern too, to some extent.
Yeah, but that's set in a modern setting with cell phones and electricity.
True.
So it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like there's cars, but in this world, there's dragons and ancient swords.
Well, there's dragons and ancient swords kind of ish in the Empyrean series. And like ancient gods and other worlds and...
Yeah, I don't know. It just stuck out.
No, that's a fair point, though. She does use a lot of pretty modern language in this book. And things that seem kind of like just a little bit odd. Like the names thing the other day, how we were talking about how we have Saeris, and then you have Hayden and Elroy, and then...
Hayden and Elroy. Yeah. Then you have Kingfisher, which might I add, how the hell did she come up with Kingfisher? No, I was prepared to be like, ew, I hate this name. It's so distracting. But you know what? It fucking works.
It does.
I don't know why. It works so well. It's so odd to me, but I ain't mad about it.
Yeah, I'm not really either. She demands to know what task she could possibly fulfill when she needed to get back to Zilvaren for Hayden and Elroy. Belikon basically gives Saeris a harsh truth, stating Madra would likely have already made good on her promise of killing off everyone in the Third, and then goes on to tell her that she would be tasked with awakening the Quicksilver and reopening the pathways between this world and others. Your cooperation in that task will dictate how you spend your time in Avelia.
Before we get into the task, I have to ask you, Lorraine, do you think Belikon is right that Hayden and Elroy are already dead?
This is another fork in the road moment between our opinions. As far as whether everyone in the Third is already dead, I was going to say I don't think they are at this point, mostly because of the conversation that happens later. And also, I'm just an optimist and I like holding on to hope for Hayden and Elroy and Callie and Swift. I don't want them to die yet.
Well, I don't care about Hayden, but Elroy and Carrion, I do care about them. Okay,
wow,
I do want them. They didn't do anything wrong.
Cold-hearted.
Okay? Listen, that's right. Don't cross me, okay? Because I'll never forget.
Harsh.
I thought a lot about it. And even with the conversation that Kingfisher and Saeris have later, I do think that for sure Hayden is dead and likely Elroy. It's been almost 2 weeks by this point, and I just don't think there is any way that Madra wouldn't have killed them as punishment for Saeris' actions. After what happened in the Hall of Mirrors, she probably went into a blind rage and went on a little killing spree. And I just don't really think there would have been anywhere for them to hide. And I don't think the people of the Third would have helped them because they would have been too scared. Now, do I think she completely raised the Third ward? No, I don't. Because I think Kingfisher's logic is sound, but specifically for Elroy and Hayden, I think he's done. Kyrian, I think, is likely fine. He doesn't have a strong enough connection to Saeris for Madra to have been oh, you're part of her family, quote unquote. To our knowledge, Kyrian and Saeris hooked up once or twice. They really don't interact a lot, so I fell on it.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely makes sense. My other thought was possibly that if Hayden and Elroy are still alive and Madra knows that they're important to Saeris, that could be used as the leverage. She could bait her into coming back by being they're still alive or whatever. Because otherwise, if they're already dead, Saeris doesn't have a reason to return. And if Madra wants Saeris for something, especially now that she knows, presumably, that she's an alchemist, right? Because who else opened up the portals, right, when they left Zilvaren? So that was my only alternative thought. I guess, yeah, I could kind of see it going both ways. I'm hoping that they're still alive, mostly for Saeris' sake, because I don't want them to die, because that would make her sad. All right, so to kind of get back on track here, this was important, referring to what Belikon wants Saeris to do, because presumably this task will be a large part of the plot. But I could definitely see it becoming kind of a point of tension. Clearly, whoever controls the Quicksilver will be in a position of power, and Saeris seems to be the only one of the characters that we know of at this time who has the ability to awaken and control the Quicksilver to some extent. So that puts her in a very interesting position, because once she masters control over the Quicksilver and her alchemical powers, that will put her in a position of power while also putting a target on her back, because should she ever fail to comply with Belikon, who knows what he'll do to get her to comply, I guess. Not to mention, I'm sure there will be other vested parties, because obviously, I'm sure there will be others who could potentially want control over the Quicksilver portals because they can lead you to anywhere.
I think it's pretty safe to say from this conversation, as well as what we learned throughout the set of chapters, that Saeris is most definitely the only person who can activate the Quicksilver. And they have been waiting for, I think they say 1,000 years or more. That definitely makes her hella special. I think it definitely puts a target on her back, right? There are probably people who don't want the Quicksilver pathways reopened, and there are probably a lot of people that do. Also, she's a very valuable bargaining chip. Can you imagine kidnapping her and then ransoming her?
Yeah.
You know, like, she really is not safe. I'm surprised she doesn't have like a guard on her full time. I think we talk about that later, but she's important.
Yes. So Saeris is dismissed and the court session gets even more interesting when a death, quote unquote, himself is brought out for the crowd. Before we get into that event, I have a lot of questions about Death, who we learn is Kingfisher. And more specifically, I have questions about his tattoos. It says, tattoos writhed and shifted like smoke across every path of visible skin, creeping up the back of his neck and swirling over the backs of his hands. Mostly, I just want to know if they have any particular meaning, and I think it's interesting that they seem, well, I don't know, maybe it's just how I read it, like moving around on his skin. We know he has some sort of shadow power, so I'm like, are the tattoos related to that somehow? What's with the tattoos, basically?
Yes, okay, hear me out. That is the analytical thought. But for me, maybe they're just hot.
That too.
I don't know.
Too.
Maybe
I mean,
they're just hot.
it fits the vibe. So
Lorraine is podcasting and I'm just living, okay?
In addition, the crowd calls him a variety of names like the Living Curse, the Bane of Gilthry, a Black Knight, and of course, Kingfisher. It's definitely implied that Kingfisher betrayed his people in a significant way, or that is the story that's been told about him. So I'm definitely curious about the backstory on that and what actually went down.
Oh yeah, Gilthry is the top of my list of things I want to know about. Like, that is my number one thing I care about, and then probably Madra after that. But interestingly, in regards to Gilthry, if you look on the map, it is clearly marked, and the picture of what I assume to be a city looks completely broken and run down, especially compared to the other cities marked on the map. I think it's definitely clear something bad happened in Gilthry, and Kingfisher was likely the cause of it, as he pretty much confirms to Saeris when she asks. I just want to know what happened, because obviously he's involved, but I highly doubt Kingfisher just raised a city just for fun.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was more to it, and we'll talk about that more when we get to the conversation about it between Saeris and Kingfisher.
I agree. As Belikon addresses the crowd, we see Everlayne whisper that it's worse, and hold on to that because that comes back up later, but it's clear that the sword that opened the Quicksilver portal for Saeris, which Belikon now holds, continues to impact her. Saeris notes being able to hear a terrible, multi-layered scream inside her head, and its pitch intensifies as Belikon gets closer with it. I definitely think Saeris will use the sword again, and that perhaps maybe she's actually meant to be the true holder of it rather than Belikon. At bare minimum, she seems to be the only one that can hear it, and that seems important.
I noticed that too. And remember in the last episode, I got excited because it seems likely this sword is a magical object. And that combined with Saeris' special metal power makes it seem significant that as the sword gets closer to her, she hears this horrible sound that it seems like no one else can hear. And so I was like, ooh, what does this mean? Continually talk about how they are just stunned that Saeris could even hold the sword, you know? So I'm like, what's going on with the sword?
It's clear Kingfisher's past and reputation precedes him, but we do get a little bit of additional context about what he did. Kingfisher apparently had been sent into exile just over a century ago in the wake of him torching a city on a whim. Based on the context, it seems like the city was Gilthry.
I think so too, and that also aligns with all of Belikon's language about how Kingfisher stabbed them in the back and our pain and grief over our loss, etc. So I also want to add here that I think it's really interesting that the descriptions of people's reaction to the situation are very mixed. Half of them seem scared and are calling for his execution, and the other half are stony and silent and seem displeased by Belikon's actions. And later on, just a little bit in this chapter, you have people pleading to free him and show him mercy. And that's a pretty big divide in people's reactions to him. Kind of feels like some people know the truth and some people know the truth that they've been fed.
Right.
And so that makes me even more curious what the hell went down at Gilthry.
Realizing Belikon would work the crowd into demanding Kingfisher's death, Everlayne calls upon Malwae. And this is when we get some more context about that ancient woman who is also sitting on the dais. Malwae seems to have some sort of gift for prophecy as an oracle, and she interrupts Belikon to say, "The sword calls to be. The last vestiges of the weapon's power echo with prophecy. Then she takes the sword, and upon touching the sword, her eyes burn brilliant white, and she says, "The gods must be obeyed. The gods must be obeyed, lest house to borrow fall. Kingfisher does not die by your hand, not today." First of all, thank God, because I didn't want Kingfisher to die. Second, I have many questions about this whole situation. How does Malwae's gift as an oracle work? Was the sword actually associated with the gods long ago? Is Quicksilver in general some sort of material of the gods? Which, now that I say that part out loud, that seems a little contradictory with something I was saying earlier. But also, what's up with her blue blood, which we see that she has when she grabs the sword's blade? If Malwae is presumably Fae, because she's in a Fae court and all, and seems to be a higher up figure within the court system, then do all Fae have blue blood? Those are just some of my preliminary questions.
I think those are all very good questions. Another thing that I thought was interesting was that she tells Belikon, "But the sword calls to me. I feel it. The last vestiges of the weapon's power echo with prophecy. I'm half deaf with the blasted thing ringing in my ears."
Ooh.
Earlier, we discussed how when Belikon dragged the sword on the ground, Saeris could hear a high-pitched scream like noise. And we know that Malwae definitely has some kind of oracle powers, and we know Saeris is special. And I wonder if there's some connection there. I don't exactly know what that would be yet, but I just thought it was interesting that they both, quote unquote, hear the sword, why it seems like other people don't. So I think that is significant.
It seems like Malwae, with her oracle abilities, commands respect that kind of supersedes even the king. But her final demand is to return the pendant, which contains powerful magic, back to Kingfisher. We'll get more info on this pendant later, but for now it's implied that it helps Kingfisher remain sane. At this point, General Renfis interrupts the crowd to offer another helping hand to Kingfisher by suggesting he be sent back to the front to help with an ongoing war with Callie. He tells Belikon, "You told me to win the war by any means necessary, so I came to claim the only tool that'll win us back our advantage. I came for him." We don't get a ton of information about this war situation in Callie, but they are not doing well against them and the beasts, quote unquote, that patrol the borders. Renfis suggests they may have maybe 6 months of supplies and manpower left. I do have a lot of questions about this war. Who is the enemy? Are they in a war with another fake kingdom? Or is this a separate group of beings? And of course, it's interesting that Kingfisher is considered powerful enough to make a big difference in the current war against them.
It's also interesting to me that whoever this mysterious enemy is seems to be so strong. We don't know a lot about the Fae in this realm, but from what we do know, they all seem pretty strong and powerful. So who's putting up so much of a fight that they might defeat them, and why? Is it another Fae kingdom? Because we do learn there are different courts. I guess we just kind of need to know more about the political landscape of Avelia before we can really decide and know. But I want to know more about Sansaroth and all of that. And of course, Rusarius is actually teaching Saeris. She, of course, tunes him out. And I'm like, maybe we could know about that. Maybe you actually need to know about that.
I hate when they do that because it's always important and it's important, but it just you have to wait out for that information to be revealed. No, Saeris, listen to it now because I wanted to know.
Right now. Exactly.
Ultimately, it's decided Kingfisher would have a week in the Winter Palace to help Rusarius teach Saeris about the Quicksilver, and then he'd be sent out to fight the war. Given Belikon's theatrical performance, I'm kind of surprised he ultimately decided to let Kingfisher live since he clearly would rather have had him be killed. But I guess if Kingfisher is really that powerful and could make a difference in the war, then it also makes sense he'd put him out there and hopefully maybe kill 2 birds with 1 stone. He's you'll save this war, but maybe you'll get got in the process or something.
I'm actually not that surprised. Belikon seems really skeezy and the type of king who panders to an audience. It seems like he wants to be, quote unquote, the popular king and he wants people to love and revere him. So he wants them to support him and he wants to manipulate them into supporting him, if that makes sense. He does want to rule with an iron fist, but he wants them to want to be ruled by him, if that makes sense. So when Malwae did her whole intervention and a lot of them were like, it's a blessing, he had to backtrack. He didn't really give himself an out in that situation.
So it's clear that the pendant, when Kingfisher gets it back, provides him with immediate relief, and he calms down as Renfis helps walk him away. I did want to note this as some potential foreshadowing. Saeris sees Kingfisher look back at the king, and it says his haunted expression promised pain and blood and death. And he was looking right at the king. I wonder if Kingfisher eventually will kill the king. It's clear they hate each other, and we get more context about that later, but I'm a little wary of Belikon and whether he's actually truly a good king, quote unquote. So, I don't know.
Oh, girl, I'm not wary at all. I think Belikon sucks.
True.
Okay? Not necessarily saying he's actually like an evil baddie bad in the way that probably Madra is, but I feel like if Belikon gets got, I won't miss him at all.
Fair enough.
I think he's not
Right,
great.
right. So actually, I had this thought later on, but I feel like Kingfisher's name is very interesting, as we kind of talked about earlier. I mean, all of our characters' names are interesting, and I want to know what Saeris' name means as well, if there is a meaning. But I guess, do you think Kingfisher's name is foreshadowing for him literally being someone who fishes or like hunts for kings or a king? And thus, it's some foreshadowing for him killing a king like Belikon.
Oh, sign me up for that. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Canon. Yeah. I love it.
So Everlayne and Saeris are dismissed as well, and they quickly meet up with Rumpus and Kingfisher in the hallway. Things definitely didn't go according to plan, but it seems like that was a good thing because there's definitely a vibe between Saeris and Kingfisher. When Kingfisher tells Everlayne and Rumpus to stop bickering, it says, "A thrill of energy rocketed up my spine at these two words. Kingfisher's voice was rough and pained, but it was also electricity. It made every hair on my body stand to attention." And I was like, same girl, same. I think anyone who listened to Kingfisher's voice via audiobook felt the exact same way.
Oh my God, retweet. Retweet. I came here to say exactly this. Something I have actually really enjoyed about this audiobook is that it's voiced by two different voice actors. I think pretty much every other audiobook I've listened to is all one actor, or maybe at most there's a different POV chapter at the very end of the book done by another person. But I am loving the back and forth, and the voice actor for Kingfisher is fucking top notch. So I want to interview him. I'm just going to give him like stuff to read.
Just read to us.
Like, can you just talk to us for like an hour? He could read the alphabet. I mean, I don't care.
Twinkle, little star.
He's great. Well, and really, truly, I mean, obviously, I'm referencing his voice is very attractive, right? But I think he does do a good job differentiating the different male characters. Yeah. And there's different pitches and tones, and he does a really good job differentiating. I really like the accent he does.
Yes.
I like that a lot.
I agree with that. Everlayne confronts Kingfisher about his decision to go through the Quicksilver portal, indicating this was a very dangerous choice for him. While Saeris and I played a game of eye color theory. Apparently, Kingfisher has a very unusual shade of vibrant green eyes, and of course she once again notes the silver in his eyes formed a reflective metal corona around the black well of his pupil, the side of which made Saeris feel strange and off balance. So there's been several references to things being a corona. We had that strange blue corona around Zilvaren's suns, and now we have the silver in Kingfisher's eyes being described as a corona as well. I don't know what it means yet, but it feels kind of important. Regardless of that, the silver in Kingfisher's eye is important, and we do get some more information about it later, so I'll wait until we get there to talk about it.
I also want to throw this back to our discussion of the book cover. I think it's a pretty safe bet that the man on the cover is Kingfisher, and the silver tear coming from his eye is Quicksilver. The question is now, how did it get there? What does it mean? Symbolically, that like it's leaking from his eye. I don't know. I got a lot of questions about that, so I'm sure that'll be an ongoing conversation for us.
Before we even learn about the family situation, I definitely felt that there was deep familiarity between Everlayne and Kingfisher. They just have that vibe of being siblings, mostly in the way that they argue with each other. They're like, bickering back and forth, and you can tell that they're close, but there's also a lot of tension, so.
Oh, yeah. They give siblings so bad, like the kind of siblings that love and can't stand each other and constantly bicker. Honestly, they didn't even have to tell me. I was like, oh, they're related.
Yeah, before that was even revealed to us, you could just tell that there was a dynamic between them. Yeah. Ultimately, they all agree everyone needs to rest, but Saeris, like us, is reeling with questions about the war Avelia was in. Again, we don't get too many more details, but we do learn the following before the chapter ends. Everlayne says, Avelia has been at war with Sansaroth for longer than she's been alive, so like over 1,500 years. And that even in times of peace, the Fae are always at war. There are those among our ranks that might pretend to be your friend, but often they're hiding knives behind their smiles, ready to sink them into your back. I guess Sansaroth is like the larger kingdom or like country that Avelia is at war with.
Or town, city, something.
But again, not sure if this is another Fae kingdom or if it's, I guess, like other types of beings.
We need to know more about the world.
Yeah. And then Everlayne basically here is suggesting trust no fae, which makes me very curious about the political situation within Abelia as a whole. Is someone vying to take Belikon's throne? Is Everlayne even safe there? I don't know.
There's a lot of questions overall just about the political landscape in general, kind of everything, which I'm sure will get revealed to us. But also, what are they fighting over? Is it control over a resource? Is it control over the continent as it appears on the map? I don't know. But the last line of the chapter did make me wonder if we can even trust Everlayne. I think this part is meant to cast some doubt and develop some intrigue. But my gut says Everlayne is good and can be trusted. But I'm just going to note it here just in case Everlayne ends up being a backstabber. I think that's highly, highly unlikely. Because, I mean, even Saeris wonders the same thing, right? But I don't think so. I think Everlayne is genuine. I think she's good. But just in case, I wanted to be able to say I called that shit in chapter 7.
I really didn't read it like that at all. But, I mean, who's to say?
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I truly was just like, I think Everlayne is warning Saeris to be careful. Like, that was how I interpreted it. But
well, she is. But, I mean, it does cast doubt, right? I mean, she literally basically said, trust no bitch.
Right.
And,
true,
and Saeris is like, well, I just met you.
Fair.
So.
True.
But I don't think so. I would be really surprised if it was Everlayne was untrustworthy.
Yeah. Only one way to find out. All right, so that ends chapter 7. Moving on to chapter 8.
The title of this chapter is Alchemist. This is a reference to Saeris, and in this chapter, it is basically confirmed she is an alchemist, and that is how she was able to activate the Quicksilver in Madra's Hall of Mirrors.
Saeris and Everlayne prepare for the first lesson in the library, and Saeris continues to be awestruck by the fact that there is both daytime and nighttime, as well as year-round snow and beautiful trees in Avelia. I know some people really love the desert landscape, but it is not for me. I cannot imagine basically growing up with like no trees, no mountains, or like bodies of water around me. No shade to anyone that loves the desert, but I like having, I guess, like a diverse landscape. So
yeah, the New Mexico, Arizona life ain't for me. Beautiful in its own way, but no. I like mountains and I like running water. Those are my go-tos on that, so retweet on that. But when she was talking about how in Zilvaren the sun never sets and how amazed she was that in Avelia the sun disappears and then returns, it got me thinking on whether I'd rather have more daylight or nighttime. And I think it's going to be nighttime for me. But I also don't know how people that live really far north or south in general handle that, like, it never gets dark or light thing in real life. It's kind of crazy when you think about it, right? Because there are, like, parts of the world where it stays dark all the time or, like, you know, it stays light all the time. And I don't know. Overall, I think that's very interesting. I don't think I would do well with that. I think I need the day and the night. But if I had to pick, I'd pick nighttime because I'm a night owl.
Yeah, I was about to say that doesn't surprise me because you're a night owl. I was going to say the opposite. I like daytime because that's when I go see everything outside.
You are light and love, and I am dark. I'm darkness and despair.
Evil. Okay.
Evil, that's right.
No, not really. But I just like having daylight and time during the day because I feel like I can do more things during the day. As soon as it gets dark, I feel like I just go like, okay, it's time to go home, even though it's like 5:30 p.m. I'm like, all right, let me get myself in my PJs and like have my tea and go to bed. I don't know.
The story of my life is I come alive at like 7:30, 8 p.m. I'm like, I feel so energized. I'm like, let me take on a big project right now. I'm like, I'm going to clean the whole house from top to bottom.
Psych. She actually falls asleep.
Whoops. Yeah. Plot twist. She did not. And in fact, fell asleep almost immediately.
It's the intention. It's how you feel about it.
Yeah.
So, okay. Aside from that, these details do definitely, in my opinion, continue to signal that something is off about Zilvaren because, again, why are there two suns and why do they never freaking set? Despite Everlayne's warning about the Fae always preparing to undercut each other and Saeris noting the unwelcoming looks of different Fae they pass by, so far, I mean, the Fae don't seem that bad. Like, the worst that they've given are some dirty looks, and while that's definitely not pleasant, at least they haven't actually said anything to her or, like, set up traps to try and kill her or something. But, I mean, you never know. Maybe it'll happen later on. I do wonder, in relation to that, if there will be some sort of ploy by some of them, especially if she can't figure out how to open the Quicksilver portals. I don't know. I guess we'll see if that becomes an issue.
I'm just curious as to why they dislike her so much. Is it just humans in general that they hate? And if that's the case, why? Because she hasn't really done anything. And if anything, you think they would at least appreciate her because she can activate the Quicksilver. So I'm just confused, like, why their instinct is like, we hate you.
I wonder if
I don't
it's
know.
just like general tension between humans and fae, right? Because like the humans have always thought of like the fae as
Possibly.
like beasts and like evil people.
Or
Right,
Madra. They
right.
probably all hate Madra.
Exactly, yeah.
So, yeah.
Upon entering the library, Saeris reflects on the enormity of it, and we get some more details about her mother. Saeris' mother had been a clerk for the tiny library in the Third, and Saeris, by extension, was allowed unfettered access when every other resident had to actually like petition for entry, which is kind of crazy. I like the quote from Saeris about Avelia's library in comparison. It said this was a treasure beyond Madra's hoard of gold, more precious than rubies and diamonds. The information inside a place like this was too vast to comprehend. I feel like it's common within fantasy books to bring up the importance of access to libraries and knowledge because doing so allows citizens and characters to educate themselves rather than let history be lost and therefore susceptible to repetition. Often libraries or important information will be destroyed by the antagonists or the enemies, so people can't figure out how to actually defeat them. I'd imagine the tiny library situation is an example of Madra's attempts to keep residents uneducated so that they can't learn the truth about magic or possibly about her. But I love this theme because it's so important to real life as well. It's obviously very critical that education and information is kept accessible, but also that we individually maintain an attitude that seeks out information and understands that learning is a constant state of being.
Lorraine, you literally read my mind. It is a common trope in fantasy books that the FMC or the MMC in particular really cherish books and the knowledge held within them. And it's one of my favorite tropes, actually. The more I think about it, I'm like, yeah, knowledge is power. Yeah. And so I like that incorporation. I think it's really important in the series, but also in the real world, especially in the real world.
Yeah.
As someone who is actively teaching kids to read, I cannot express to you the importance of phonemic awareness and also just reading in general, language comprehension, etc.
Right. Just having like an attitude of always learning, I think is important, and that it's like
Yes.
a lifelong process to do so. So,
Oh, not me. I know everything.
okay.
But for other people,
As
absolutely,
mere peasants
yes.
of the
I
rest
want that
of the
all for
world.
you.
Okay.
Exactly. Exactly.
Aside from that, I thought it was interesting that even after Saeris has been accepted as Elro's apprentice, she'd been interested in reading whatever she could about metals rather than glassworking, because I think that continues to add into Saeris' role as an alchemist and how perhaps she'd always kind of been pulled towards this path. It seems like she had an inkling about her abilities, like she knew that she was like special and different. She had no one else to teach her about it, and so maybe this was her way of kind of trying to learn more about it on her own, you know? This also made me wonder as a whole if different metals have different powers or energies. Now that we know Saeris is an alchemist, I'm curious about whether all metals have different magical properties that she can harness, or if it's just certain kinds. Next, we are introduced to Rusarius, the master librarian of the Winter Palace, and I love that he has a very grandfatherly relationship with Everlayne. He just seems like very cute and warm, but then it's contrasted with the fact that when we meet him, he's like talking about how he'd stabbed whoever had come into his room to bring him to the court, you know? So I'm like, oh, all right. Like,
Well, more importantly, he stabbed him right in the butt, which is hilarious. Rusarius' character was an immediate like for me. He's just so nerdy and adorable and just blissfully unaware. And I just really enjoyed him in this set of chapters.
As Rusarius inquires about Saeris, we do get a couple interesting details that should be noted. First of all, Rusarius is amazed that Saeris comes from Zilvaren, the Silver City, and immediately refers to her as an alchemist since she'd been able to awaken the Quicksilver. In addition, he is shocked that Saeris had been able to hold the sword, which we learn is named Solus. And this is all shocking because as far as anyone knew, alchemists were all fae, but the infamous Kingfisher suddenly interrupts to say she must have a drop of fae blood, enough to stop Solus from burning off her hands, but not enough to matter. Not really, I guess, green flag? Should I say it's a green flag? It's a flag of some sort, but
Yeah.
So Saeris definitely has some sort of fae blood in her somehow, I would think. The question, of course, is how, and was it through her mother or her father? But in addition, I was really excited to get confirmation about what power Saeris actually has, and that is alchemy. It also seems like this power is pretty rare, or at least it's definitely not commonplace.
Oh, based on what we learned, I think is extremely rare. I mean, we've speculated on her lineage already in the last episode. So for me, this definitely confirms either her mother or her father were Fae or descendants of Fae. I even toyed with the idea that Saeris was actually a Fae child who got put in Zilvaren for safekeeping, and like her mother is not actually her mother at all. Like her mother was just like a protector. I went a lot of places. Yeah, I didn't like flesh that out because I need some more information, but I think right now my money is on it being her father.
Interesting. Okay.
But I got a lot of ideas. I need more evidence.
I'm curious. I think I'm still kind of leaning towards it being her mother, but I'm very curious about her father's situation because, I mean, who is he? Why is he never talked about? So, like, what's going on there? I don't know. But aside from Saeris, we do obviously have to talk about the sword, Solus. From the context, it seems like you must have Fae blood to touch Solus, and if you don't, then it will burn you. That makes me wonder if anyone can use Solus. It doesn't seem like everyone is necessarily connected to Solus. Kingfisher and Saeris in particular seem to be kind of uniquely connected to him somehow, since it said it called to both of them. And then obviously Saeris is an alchemist. Well, so it says that it called to Kingfisher, right? That's why he'd answered in the last set of chapters. And then we see that Saeris is an alchemist. So I'd like to definitely know how it works with the Quicksilver portals as well, since it being embedded in the pool is what stilled it all and like caused it to close. So
I think it's worth noting also that Belikon was holding Solus in the last chapter, and it did not seem to negatively affect him in any way.
Right.
So that makes me wonder if you just have to have Fae blood, or if you have to have royal blood, because we know Belikon is the king. We think Saeris may be royal. Fisher, sort of, by marriage has royal blood. I don't know. So you could go in different directions.
Right. Well, Kingfisher's father was a pretty high lord, right? So, I mean, he's kind of...
Yes.
Not like quite as high, royally speaking, but yeah. And then, of course, this does also lead to more questions about Madra and the closing of the Quicksilver portal in the first place. I am strongly speculating that Madra is Fae. Alternatively, does she have like a personal alchemist that she's kept like hidden within her rakes? Is she actually an alchemist herself? Because ultimately, how was she able to use Solus to close the Quicksilver portals? Lots of questions. And then, sorry guys, I had a lot of points from this little detail. Why did Solus ultimately call to Kingfisher? And was he summoned wherever he had been exiled to by Belikon? Or where was he coming from when he traveled through the portals? Clearly, Solus influenced his location because there was no way that he would have just found Saeris through the portals otherwise, right?
Yes, question mark? I mean, I think we can agree those are really good questions, especially why Solus specifically called to Kingfisher and not anyone else, right? Like, why was Belikon not drawn there? I don't know. I got a lot of questions. We need answers. Yeah. We need them.
The whole exchange between Kingfisher and Everlayne was pretty hilarious. My personal favorite line was, "I've seen Ren's balls. I've seen yours too. I've seen everything. So I know exactly where to aim my knee if you continue to test me." And I was just picturing some random person just walking by right as she's saying all this. And they'd probably be like, "Girl, what?
What the fuck?" The whole conversation is so bickering siblings coded. It's so funny.
Jokes aside, it's pretty clear that there is a lot of animosity between Belikon and Kingfisher because he mentions needing to look out for assassins. And we do actually get confirmation of why that is, which was appreciated. So we'll talk about that later. We definitely continue to also feel a small vibe between Saeris and Kingfisher when she notes his eyes flicker to her briefly. But we also get another small detail about Kingfisher's power. Saeris thinks, and again, the library grew yet another degree darker. Was he doing that? And to that, I would definitely say yes. And he clearly has some shadow magic because he's obviously a shadow daddy. Case closed.
Signed, sealed, delivered, baby. The Booked on Fantasy podcast detectives have done it again.
Saeris feigns indifference towards Kingfisher and his big sword. But I did want to note that Rusarius name. It says Nimmerel is a formidable sword. Alchemiran, a much-lauded, storied weapon of the ancients. I'm assuming Alchemiran means it was crafted by an alchemist originally. Alternatively, does it just mean it has Quicksilver in it? Regardless, it seems to be a highly valued sword.
I think it's also worth noting that this means that Kingfisher wields an ancient and powerful sword, aka Nemerel, but soulless, which seems to be another ancient, powerful sword called to him. All of that makes me very interested in Kingfisher's backstory if he's able to wield and be called to by two very powerful ancient magical objects.
So you know how, like, on his armor, later it says the Doe Crescent.
There's two crossed swords.
So maybe he is actually supposed to.
We're going to talk about that.
So he's supposed to have both of them or something. Ooh.
I got some thoughts about that. We'll talk about it whenever Saeris uses relic. But yes, I think that is intentional. Okay. Yes. Look at us podcasting and thinking in real time. Yeah, baby. I also absolutely loved how Renfis was fighting for his life, not to laugh, while Everlayne is just like getting all red and trying to look busy. And then Rusarius is like, as a matter of fact, that sword is special. And he just had no idea. He is so sweet and innocent. And I'm just like,
there's two different things happening right now. So,
oh, yeah.
Saeris' study session begins with some Fae history and politics, which she is highly uninterested in because she argues that she'd rather learn about the Quicksilver portals so she can get back to Hayden. This starts an argument amongst everyone, but we do get additional evidence about Everlayne and Kingfisher's relationship. Saeris asks Everlayne, "Do you have a brother?" And then it said she blinked rapidly, flustered. Her eyes darted to Kingfisher for some reason, and this was definitely the pretty big major flag on a first read to indicate that they actually are siblings, and that there's been a clear division between them over time. Saeris pushes the point of wanting to see for yourself whether your family was dead before assuming that they are. While Everlayne and Rusarius are skeptical, I did kind of appreciate Kingfisher's point, and this is something that we were referring to earlier. This is a long quote, but I do think it's important. He says, "There's a chance your people are still alive, human. Madra used Solus to seal the pathways a long time ago. But with the sword returned to us and an alchemist in our midst, she knows that she'll have a war on her doorstep any day now. Without a fresh army at her fingertips, she knows she'll be swept away by a sea of Fae warriors 30,000 deep once Belikon wedges the door into her world open. She lied to him, tricked him, cut off his trade lines to the other realms, not to mention the fact that there are still rumors floating around that the Dianthus heir is in Zilvaren somewhere. The king will want a war, and a bloody one at that. Madra won't have torched 10% of her people to exact revenge against one silly girl. She'll have conscripted them." I thought that was a good point, and I'm going to bank on Madra needing the people of the Third as soldiers rather than killing them off, although I do wonder how that's going to go, considering it seems like a lot of people in the Third are not obviously fans of Madra, but they're also scared of her, so they may just comply because of that. Overall, though, this is definitely some sort of foreshadowing for a larger war to come between Madra and the Fae.
Yes, I totally agree. I was actually excited about this because once we got to Avelia, I wondered if the Madra storyline would fall back quite a bit in the story, but I think this foreshadows an inevitable conflict, and I'm excited because I really want more of Madra's backstory, and I'm interested to see how she fits in to the storyline as it's unfolding now, right? Because it kind of seems like separate things almost. Zilvaren is kind of unimportant now that we're in Avelia, but clearly I think this indicates that it's going to continue to be intertwined.
And then from this paragraph, the other notable detail that stuck out to me was that Kingfisher mentions a Dianthus heir. Is this another royal Fae lineage line, or who is this person and why are they important? I did actually wonder if perhaps Saeris is this Dianthus heir, because we've gotten so many hints about her having Fae lineage, in addition to her highborn status, her long dark hair, her blue eyes. I don't know, but it's important.
Ooh, baby, I thought the same thing. I have to be totally honest, the Dianthus heir thing totally went over my head, even after listening multiple times. But when I actually was doing the notes, it hit me like a bolt of lightning. Immediately, I was like, yup, Saeris is the Dianthus heir, 1000%. Especially as you pointed out, the detail about the dark hair and blue eyes is usually a royal trait. I'm like, okay, right? She's an alchemist. She can touch
She was
Solus.
in Zilvaren.
She has dark hair, blue iron.
Yeah.
Okay. If she's not, I'm going to be kind of mad. I think I'm going to be kind of mad at myself. But right now, yes, Dianthus heir, 1000%.
Yay.
You can quote me on that.
They converse about the risky process of opening the Quicksilver portal in Zilvaren, and it seems to be established that only one alchemist can open the portal between Avelia and Zilvaren specifically, and that alchemist is Saeris, since she was the one holding Solus. and Kingfisher claims he is not capable of activating Quicksilver. So I'm going to take both of those details at face value. Given what we learn happened to Kingfisher, it does seem to be the case that Saeris was responsible for activating the Quicksilver, and this is not something that Kingfisher is able to do. I remember wondering about that in the last episode, but it seems like you have to have special magical objects like the pendant necklace or like the ring Kingfisher brings up in this conversation to grant you immunity from the effects of Quicksilver. And that was the reason why it just kind of rolled off of him rather than like attack and cling to him like it did with Heron.
That sounds right to me. I will say I'm a little confused why Everlayne is so hesitant to admit that Saeris is an alchemist, because she kind of pushes back when both Rusarius and Kingfisher say it. And to me, it seems pretty obvious based on the world building, only an alchemist can activate the Quicksilver. Only someone special can pull solace from the Quicksilver. And since Saeris was the one holding the sword, it seems pretty likely that was the case. And so I'm curious why Everlayne is like, well, we don't know that for sure. But like, no, we're pretty sure. We're pretty sure about that. You know, like, why are we...
Yeah, all roads lead to...
I don't know.
Saeris is an alchemist.
Yes. And simultaneously, she's teaching her about alchemy. So I'm like, I don't know. I just thought that was kind of weird.
Everlayne points out that the ring Kingfisher was wearing at the time must not have been enough, asking, you took in more, didn't you? And that was pretty intriguing, but fortunately, we will get more information about that later. So again, just kind of hold on to that. Also, I don't know why yet or what this means, but there has to be something, in my opinion, important about the silver plate with the wolf head engraving that Kingfisher wears around his neck. Saeris stares at it, and it's noted a few different times, that wolf symbol specifically. So I just wanted to point it out. And wolves symbolically represent family, loyalty, wisdom, guidance, strength, and protection from a positive viewpoint. From a negative viewpoint, they can represent chaos, destruction, and wildness. So, I mean, I'm under the impression that Kingfisher is a good character at this point, but I definitely want to know more about his wolf armor.
I went back and forth on this because it's still early in the book. And my initial thought was that it was just very detailed descriptive language, but it does get mentioned several more times. Plus, when he takes it off and he has the wolf tattoo. So for me, that definitely made it more suspicious that it has a more significant meaning.
It's clear Everlayne and Memphis are concerned about the Quicksilver in Kingfisher. The war Avelia was already fighting with Sansaroth and the impending war against Madra, but Kingfisher seems kind of emotionally dead to the world, stating, the last time I fought, a city burned to the ground. I think I've shed enough blood for Avelia. I continue to wonder what really went down in Gilthry and just basically all of Kingfisher's past in general, but I'm assuming that we'll get that in time. To end the chapter, Kingfisher asks Saeris whether she'd ever channeled Metal's energy before and whether she had any experience working in a forge, which she answers yes to both. All right, that concludes Chapter 8. Moving on to Chapter 9.
The title of this chapter is Righteous Purpose. This is a reference to how Kingfisher fucks with Saeris when they are in the forge. Saeris asks him if he can use magic or utter a spell to clean up the forge, and he says, I don't do spells. I'm not a witch. Fey magic isn't some kind of cheap conjuring trick human. Our abilities are sacred gifts to be used discerningly for righteous purposes, which is hilarious because it turns out Kingfisher uses his magic quite literally for everything all the time. I love that. What a smarmy fuckboy thing to say. And you know what? It worked for me.
Kingfisher, Saeris, Renthis, and Everlayne all head to the palace's forge. As they do, Saeris considers how she'd escape from the Winter Palace and get back to Zilvaren, though she knew there was much more that she needed to learn about Quicksilver and the portals before she could do so. Everlayne protests against having Saeris go straight into working with Quicksilver, favoring a theory-based slow roll approach, but notably Kingfisher says there are no written accounts of the alchemist processes. If there was, the elders might have had some luck understanding their abilities. So this kind of seems to imply that the alchemists are really in a league of their own and, again, are very rare overall.
As much as the Fae seem to value knowledge, I'm surprised there are not written accounts of the alchemist's processes. I'm probably said that wrong, but you get what I mean. I think I talk about this more in depth later, but in general, there seems to be a lot about alchemists and anything in relation to them that is not documented, and I find that quite suspicious.
Kingfisher is definitely the no coddling and no bullshit type. And I kind of appreciate that he gets straight to the point with Saeris about her status in Avelia as a human. I definitely am at a point in my life where I really come to value just getting information straight up. Like, no sugarcoating, just give me the truth, even if it's not the truth that I necessarily want to hear, which I'll admit took me time to get to, right? Like instinctively, you're kind of like, oh, be nice. Back in the past, at least. But I've since kind of grown to appreciate just the hard truth. So.
Oh, not me. I want all the sugarcoating.
Oh.
I want you to give it to me slow and sweet and nice. I want you to treat me like I'm a delicate little flower, and I don't want you to hurt my feelings, okay? Do not give it to me straight. I do not enjoy that.
Uh-oh.
But when Kingfisher does it, I think it's hot. Just kidding, sort of. I don't know. But I do appreciate his directness. If there is something I would want to know, I feel like I would just go ask Kingfisher, right? Lane would be like, well, it was a long time ago. And it's a very hard thing. And Kingfisher is like, yeah, we used to be really bad.
Right.
There was a curse. Let me tell you about
Right,
it. So I'm like, okay.
See, but that's like the value of that, right? Because then you can be like, okay, well, I know that they will give me the information. So
true.
But more importantly, I found it really interesting when he says that Avelia used to have humans. It said, our ancestors were cursed millennia ago. As a result, we ended up with these, he said, gesturing to his canines. We used them to drink your kind dry. We drained you by the millions before the blood curse was lifted. This was long before our time, of course, but the Fey line still bears the marks of its past. We might not need blood to maintain our immortality anymore, but by the gods do we still have teeth. I mean, honestly, that basically sounds vampiric. I don't know if that's a word, but like vampire-esque. And I'm going to need a lot more information about what this means. Who cursed the Fey originally? How was the blood curse lifted? And are there vampires in this world too? This is honestly the first I've ever seen in a book where like vampires and Fey are seemingly crossed, and the world lore implies that there's commonalities between them. Have you seen this kind of crossing over concept in any book before?
No, absolutely not. And I'm here for it, honestly. My ears perked up so fast when I read that. I was like, whoa, wait, what? I've never seen it. I'm not mad about it. I actually love it. It lines up so well with the Fae having the sharp canine teeth. And I'm kind of obsessed with the idea. And now I really want to know the backstory of this fucking world. Like, I want to know about the Fae before the blood curse. Obviously, everything about the blood curse, who did it, who was affected, is it still active? Right. Is that like the deal with Sansaroth? What does that have to do with Gilthry, Madra? I mean, all of that. I feel like all of that is kind of interconnected, and that's kind of the starting place. But I said it in the first episode, and I'll say it again. This book has mad intrigue, but I'm kind of here for it. It tracks for me.
I like the whole canine thing because, I mean, it fits. So
makes perfect sense. Yes.
So, and then this definitely made me wonder if there are still Fae today that maybe do still drink blood or need it for whatever reason. And then I guess I already kind of said this, but in the quote he says, but by the gods do we still have the teeth? So I'm like, are the gods involved with this too somehow? And then obviously, like, how was the curse ultimately lifted? So I don't know, just lots to think about.
Yeah, this made me wonder if that's where the Corcoran went. And maybe they went to look for a cure to the blood curse and never came back, or they went to go do something in relation to it. And yeah, I don't know. But that's where my mind is right now.
Yeah, like, where the hell did they go? Why haven't they come back? Okay, my last point here. Does Madra drink blood, perhaps? I'm literally connecting Madra to everything. I'm like, she's Fae. She's an alchemist.
Why not?
Now she drinks blood too.
She's everything. She is the Corcoran.
She's everything. Everlayne is fully upset with Kingfisher at this point for being an asshole, which is fair. But this is the point where we get confirmation that she and Kingfisher, in fact, are siblings when she says, "You're my brother, though I sometimes wish you weren't." Ouch. Obviously, this explains so much about their dynamic, but it's clear this is information that's been kept on the DL and that they don't want becoming widely known. Everlayne and Renfis split off at this point, with Renfis agreeing that Kingfisher was being an ass. Again, I definitely like to know more about what happened to him in the past to make him so, like, cold-hearted, because Renfis says, "We didn't forget about you. You have no idea what we went through to try and get you back."
And also, just on the never-ending train of questions here, get him back from who?
Yeah.
From what? Why? Right? Presumably it's exile, but like more. Give me more.
Saeris is faced with the choice to go comfort Everlayne or continue to the Forge. And little O'Shaleth chooses to go with Kingfisher to the Forge. According to Kingfisher, an O'Shaleth is a type of butterfly with a day-long life cycle, and the cold kills them very fast. I definitely find it interesting that he calls Saeris an O'Shaleth because it feels like he's trying to intimidate her and imply that she won't survive in Avelia for long. But on the other hand, we do see that there are butterflies on the cover of the book. And butterflies symbolically represent hope, transformation, birth, and freedom. So I wonder if this is signaling the beginning of a larger change for Saeris in her life.
I like your analysis on the butterfly, but I gotta be honest, coming from Kingfisher, I definitely took it as insulting. His explanation made me think he's basically saying because she's just a weak-ass human girl, she won't survive in Avelia long, and her life cycle compared to the Fae is equivalent to a day. So I took it as not nice.
Well, yeah, obviously, but I like the symbolism of it, so I'm looking forward to that. Shortly after Saeris and Kingfisher arrive at the forge, I thought it was funny that she asked if they should knock, and instead Kingfisher just kicks down the door and goes, knock, knock. I don't think anyone's home. Notably, Saeris is being cautious with concerns about the forge being warded by magic. However, Kingfisher assures her it's not because since he is magic, he would be able to tell. I do obviously want to know more about what Kingfisher can do and how his magic works, but I thought it was funny. Saeris asked, what about you as magic? And he responds, everything. My looks, my sword skills, my personality. And then Saeris cuts him off to say, your personality is trash. Which I think is funny, and it's fair considering he really hasn't been the most sharpening character so far, but still doesn't stop him from being an alluring shadow daddy anyway, so.
I am living for the banter and the trash talking between the two of them. I don't know about y'all, but I'm seeing enemies to lovers so clearly between these two. I did think this interaction was hilarious, but also when Saeris pops up back with, your personality is trash, this is another example to me of the very modern language starting into this ancient magical Fae world, right? That just feels like something like a middle schooler would say, hey, your personality is trash, right? Not bad. Again, just itch my brain.
Upon entering, Saeris quickly sees the forge was rusted from disuse and the entire room was overgrown with all kinds of plant life, indicating the royal archivist hadn't been doing a damn thing despite collecting a nice paycheck for the past 200 years. I mean, this adds to the fact that they haven't had an alchemist in Velia for at least 200 years, but obviously likely much longer than that.
Well, they confirm it's 1,000 years. So I don't think the archivist was only tasked with figuring out how the alchemists used to activate the Quicksilver. I don't think he was an alchemist. So.
Right, yeah.
Oh, also, in relation to the archivist, who's obviously not important, but sign me up to collect a paycheck for 200 years and not have to really do anything. You know what I'm saying? Sign me the fuck up. Right, thank you.
So, since Fae magic isn't some kind of cheap conjuring trick, and their abilities are sacred gifts to be used discerningly for righteous purposes, Saeris gets to tediously cleaning up the forge by hand. I also want to point out that Saeris asks if there's a winter palace, then there are other royal residences too. Yes, an autumn palace, spring, summer. And so this was kind of the detail that cued me into, okay, maybe there are other palaces that correspond to different seasons. So I'm curious about the other Fae that exist in Avelia and the world compared to the Winter Palace specifically. Kingfisher challenges Saeris to ask more interesting questions, so she asks about the special silver necklace pendant and the Quicksilver, which leads to a lot of very notable information, and this is what we learn. So Quicksilver is a very volatile substance, and it's thought to have some sentience, which explains how it seemed to act of its own accord in the last set of chapters.
I'm going to go ahead and say that, yes, it does have sentience. We discussed this briefly in the last episode, but remember, Saeris mentioned she feels like she can hear it screaming. That plus the Anorath more stuff later. It's pretty much canon for me that it is a living thing. Now, what that means, I don't know. But I don't think it's an inert element in the way iron is, right? I think it's something different.
It feels like it has its own agenda as well. It wants her to use it in a very specific way. So I don't know. Anyways, when it comes into contact with bare skin, it will make people see things and push any living creature beyond the boundaries of sanity. Saeris realizes that Heron's dagger must have been made of Quicksilver, and Kingfisher confirms alchemists used to forge Quicksilver into weaponry for Fae warriors. Heron had no business touching that weapon, let alone claiming it. And this detail did make me wonder how Heron got a dagger originally made for Fae Warrior, since presumably he's not Fae. I would assume that Madra was involved, but does she have other Quicksilver weapons for her guardians? I asked this obviously in the last episode, but again, is Madra Fae or is she some sort of other magical being?
I feel like almost certainly Madra probably stole all kinds of magical Fae shit, so I just don't think there's any other way she could not have given her living 1,000 years.
Right.
I don't know. Madra's got a lot going on.
She knows.
A lot of magical shit.
Based on the context, it seems like it's confirmed that you get alchemist abilities through inherited lineage. And this obviously leads to the question of who in Saeris' family had alchemist abilities as well.
I agree. And the sentiment is also echoed when Saeris asked Kingfisher, so these alchemists, they inherited their abilities. It's about blood. And Kingfisher responds, everything is about blood, human. Which, given what we learn about the blood curse, kind of, I feel like has a little bit of a double meaning there too. I also want to point out, everything, if you're reading the physical copy of the book, is in italics, which always means heavy emphasis, right? You're supposed to lock in on that a little bit more. I feel like there's more significance that will continue to be revealed to us about bloodlines, blood in general.
Yes, I agree with that. Next, we do get more information about Kingfisher's pendant necklace. Apparently, it had been given to him by his mother when he was 11. Later on, once he joined Belikon's army, he was tasked with traveling between Avelia and other realms because his pendant was one of the most powerful, guards against Quicksilver. One time, he traveled a pathway without it, and this was when the Quicksilver basically infected him in a way. A healer was able to draw most of the Quicksilver out, but a small bit remained, and presumably this is what Saeris notices in his eye. According to Kingfisher, he wears his relic constantly because it's the only thing that calms the noise in my head. Without it, the line between what's real and what isn't blurs very quickly. So I guess this makes me wonder if perhaps his mother was an alchemist? If not, then how are these special Quicksilver-resistant relics actually created?
I mean, insert all the normal questions about a newly introduced magical object here, right? A lot of questions. But for me, this confirms that the Quicksilver is definitely sentient. I know I keep saying that, but I feel like the text evidence supports it now. And so if it quote unquote lives in Kingfisher and he can hear it without his relic, just like Saeris could hear it, then that definitely further confirms that it is a living thing. There's a living connection there. And so I'm trying to quit saying that now because I think it's established, but this is evidence to support that.
Saeris goes on to ask why Kingfisher gave her the necklace and saved her, to which she says the Quicksilver pathways had formerly been the only ways to trade and get magical items between realms, but that was cut off when Madra stilled every Quicksilver pool in every realm by driving Solus into her pool of Quicksilver. He says, you shouldn't have been able to touch the sword, let alone draw it, and the silver responded to you. You activated it. You did only what an alchemist can do. This definitely drives home Saeris' importance to the plot and the interests of, I think, other players within the overall game. But this also makes Saeris a target, as I kind of talked about earlier, because Belikon knows she's an alchemist, and now presumably Madra does as well. It seems like everyone knows controlling Saeris is important because controlling her means controlling and accessing Quicksilver portal networks. We see that even Kingfisher recognized that he could use Saeris as a bargaining chip for his own circumstances too. So Saeris she's got to watch out for herself.
I know, given her ability and importance, I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I'm actually surprised Belikon does not have her more heavily guarded.
Yeah.
Not even for fear of her escaping, but just she's such a valuable asset, right? She's the only person in 1,000 years that have been able to activate the Quicksilver. I feel like I would have her under lock and key and direct supervision at all times, even surpassing just Everlayne. So that's kind of interesting to me.
Many hours of cleaning later, Renfis comes back to Saeris, and I thought it was hilarious that Renfis is like, this is all you guys got done. And then this, of course, is when Kingfisher finally actually uses his shadow magic to miraculously clear up the forge in one sweep. The chapter ends with Saeris immediately turning on him for not using his magic sooner. But without any remorse, he says, I just wanted to see if you knew what hard work was. I told you I was magic. And I was like, damn. I would be pissed, honestly. I mean, I get that Kingfisher wanted to test Saeris' work ethic, I guess, first, but also they have 1 week to get Saeris to learn how to activate Quicksilver and use all the portals. You don't really have a lot of time to waste, so just clean it up, Kingfisher.
That's a good point. He really doesn't have any urgency whatsoever. He's like, yeah, whatever. He's just living his best life. Honestly, though, I love this. I thought it was hilarious. Kingfisher is very arrogant and funny and hot, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying all of it.
All right, so that ends chapter 9. Moving on to chapter 10.
The title of this chapter is Crumbs. This is a reference to Rusarius scolding Kingfisher for eating in the library, and he tells everyone he only eats dry crackers in the library, and he even leans out a window in doing so to avoid crumbs. And let me just say that Rusarius can use my personal library anytime because this male respects books, okay? He respects them to a T, and I love that.
So the next morning, Saeris and Everlayne have breakfast in Saeris' room. To add some color theory here, Everlayne dresses Saeris in a shimmering purple dress, which, granted our earlier discussion about Corcoran, purple and royalty, I found it worth noting. This really all could be nothing, but I'm going to keep pointing it out because I can't help it.
Detective Lorraine is on the case, and you best believe she isn't going to miss a single detail, okay?
Color watch.
Sherlock Holmes ain't got nothing on you, baby.
Before going to the library, Saeris apologizes to Everlayne for choosing the forge over the library with her the day before, and it seems Everlayne is easy to forgive.
I love how Everlayne was just looking all sad, and Saeris basically was like, Lane, I'm sorry. And before she could even finish, Lane was like, okay, let's be besties again.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
In the library, Rusarius is having a fit over Kingfisher eating a plate of meat in his precious library. But notably, Renfis assures Rusarius, the day I manage to make Kingfisher do anything is the day the Corcoran return. This prompts Saeris to ask Everlayne where the gods actually went in the first place, to which she says they set off on a pilgrimage thousands of, and then she gets distracted and doesn't finish that thought. That line definitely piqued my interest and continued into the whole question of what actually happened to the gods. This seems to imply they disappeared unexpectedly, which makes me feel their absence is unintentional. It definitely feels like something happened to them probably during this pilgrimage that wasn't good. And as we touched on earlier, it does make you wonder if a return of the gods is related to righting some sort of curse or setting the world back in order in some way.
As I mentioned earlier, my working theory is that they went to try and find a cure for the blood curse or something related. My second, and I won't call it a theory because it's still forming, so we'll go with thought, is that it has something to do with the Quicksilver. They went to go learn information or do something in regards to the Quicksilver and its power, or, harness it, release it. I don't know, something in relation to that.
Yeah. Everlayne begs Kingfisher to control himself in the library, but he sees himself and his meat out all on his own, vowing to see Saeris in the book.
This book has made you so dirty, Lorraine. When I first met you, way back before we started the podcast, I thought you were the sweetest, most innocent baby, doe-eyed thing in the whole world. And now you're bad.
The more you know.
Bad.
I am who I am. Taking some time to peel back the layers. We're getting to the core of the onion now.
Okay, Lori.
But the tension between Everlayne and Kingfisher, I appreciated that Renfis says he does deserve some grace, though. He has no rooms here, nowhere to eat, nowhere to sleep, no provisions, and 110 years, Lane. Can you imagine what 110 years would have been like in that place alone? So my assumption would be that Renfis is referring to the hell Kingfisher calls wherever he was forced to go for the past 110 years. But it's kind of unclear what that actually means. It could be some sort of prison or, the exile somewhere, most likely for whatever occurred in Gilthry. Overall, though, it's clear there's a lot of resentment, anger, and hurt behind Kingfisher's attitude and behavior because whatever he endured there sounded like it was pretty damn awful. It seems like much of Everlayne's frustration with Kingfisher is more due to her own guilt over what Kingfisher has endured and feeling that she can't help him as much as she wants to. But Renfis says there's a way to fix him, we just haven't found it yet. In the meantime, I'm not going to give up on him, are you? That definitely feels like it's related to the Quicksilver that still remains in Kingfisher, in addition to any emotional damage he probably has incurred from his punishment. And I guess speaking of Quicksilver, seeing as Saeris demonstrates an ability to quell the Quicksilver within the set of chapters, I wonder if she will be able to extract or at least quiet the Quicksilver in Kingfisher. Her power will be a resource that will provide him some relief from it.
I'm loving all of these thoughts. Based on the context, I think you're absolutely right. And given what we know about the Quicksilver, I'm willing to bet the longer Kingfisher has it inside of him, the more quote-unquote damage it does. I can only imagine what living with it inside you can do over time. And this also makes me call back to a very quick line earlier when Lane tells Fisher, you took more in, didn't you? I think she was referring to the Quicksilver that he may have ingested more when he saved Saeris. I love your thought about Saeris being able to extract Quicksilver from Kingfisher. Honestly, I had the exact same thought. I was like, oh, Saeris is fixing to be part of the cure, baby, right? Just the whole scene with him putting it in her palm and her being able to manipulate it. I was like, okay. And if a healer could have taken some out, it would stand to reason that more could be taken out eventually, I guess. Overall, I think this conversation has really set us up nicely to see character growth and meaningful change for Kingfisher. And y'all know I love some good character development. So I'm excited to see what happens for Kingfisher, in a world where the Quicksilver that's probably painful is removed.
Everlayne attempts to get back to the study session and wanted to note that she says, Rusarius, where in the 5 hells did that man go? And I noted this because in the last episode, the Guardian threatens to dispatch Saeris through the 5th gate of hell, and that made me wonder if perhaps there really is a hell in this book. Everlayne's expression here says 5 hells, and so I also can't help but wonder if there isn't just one hell realm, but possibly multiple ones.
Ooh, I wonder if it's sort of like Dante's Inferno. Like there's different levels of hell and then each one gets worse. Like maybe that kind of situation.
The scene ends with Saeris asking Everlayne if she's okay. And I will say I'm a little disappointed in Everlayne with her hopelessness for her own brother. She says, he was the very best thing in my entire life, the only good thing, and he's gone. I knew he would be, but it's hard to see and to accept. I know she loves him and hates to see Kingfisher in the state that he's in, but at least he's alive. And now you have an alchemist who might be able to help him with the problem that he has. So honestly, I just need Everlayne to buck up and have some faith that Kingfisher can be helped.
I agree, but we also don't know what Fisher was like before the last 110 years. I don't think he was ever Mr. Sunshine, but even Renfest seems to agree that Kingfisher is darker and harder to interact with now. And I imagine that would be really devastating and really demoralizing to see, especially after so much time has passed. So I can sympathize with Everlayne.
In the next scene, we get a mini download about alchemy, which includes the following information. Alchemy was a form of forgotten old magic that after so long was now considered a myth among the Fae. There had once been 3 branches of alchemy: Fae seeking immortality, Fae seeking how to create and invent by transmuting metals and ores, and Fae who wanted to cure illness and disease. Everlayne and Rusarius believed Saeris was most likely the second kind that transmuted metals. Alchemists thousands of years ago found a way to transform different compounds into precious metals, thus creating vast amounts of gold and silver, which were promptly used to fill royal coffers. Talk about inflation.
We're such nerds. When I first read that, I was like, well, that must wreak havoc on their economy. Like, that was my immediate thought. I was like, that seems really problematic to just continually introduce money into this economy.
Money's not real. Just kidding. I don't know.
No, I mean, eat the rich. Just kidding. That was supposed to be funny, guys. Don't take it seriously.
I mean, at its core, money is kind of a made-up thing, right? So.
Oh, I mean, do we want to go down this road?
No, I don't. So. Okay, anyways, moving on. Eventually, Quicksilver and its connections to pathways between realms was discovered, which just led to a bunch of chaos. So I'm going to take a guess here and say I think Saeris could potentially have more than one type of alchemical ability. Like for now, the gift she is manifesting is related to transmuting metals, but later down the line, maybe she will be able to become like immortal or cure diseases and stuff as well.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that. But obviously, we know she is special, but she might even be more extra special than we thought and can do all 3. Because it seems like documented, at least thus far, there wasn't anybody who could do all 3. They could do 1, and that was a lot and cool. So maybe she can do all of those things.
In addition, I definitely feel that all the precious metal Maudra has and uses for her guardian's armor and stuff, I'm inclined to think that that has to be related to alchemy, right? Now, still not sure whether Maudra herself is an alchemist, but it's becoming more possible in my mind that she is, and that's also how she became immortal. But, we'll see.
That's interesting. That might explain the obsession she has with metal and why there's literally a black market for metal in Zilvaren, right? She needs it to transmute or whatever magical alchemical process. That's interesting. I like that.
And the last point here, I wonder if Quicksilver already existed or if it was created by accident as a byproduct of alchemy, just like some way, somehow back in the day. While all this information was exciting from a reader's perspective, the only thing Saeris really cares about is how to actually control the Quicksilver. Everlayne says it's assumed that they activated and deactivated it or opened and closed the pathways by using their magic. But Rusarius adds, it's hotly debated whether they controlled it at all. According to most documents from around that time, the Second Order of the Alchemists lived very short lives. They often went mad and killed themselves. This definitely sets up an interesting dynamic because while alchemists are the only ones with an ability to use Quicksilver or harness its power, it does suggest that they're not necessarily immune to its negative effects. Aside from that, Everlayne makes using Quicksilver as an alchemist sound so easy because she's just like, just activate it. And I'm like, okay, but like how? Like, what does that actually look like?
How? Thank you. No one in 1,000 years has been able to do it, but sure, like, go ahead, just do it. Just try. She and Rusarius are both like, Saeris, it's incredibly mysterious and dangerous, but just go ahead and do your best. And worst case, you go mad and kill yourself. Not that big a deal, right? Like, okay, thanks for that.
Saeris gets anxious and worries about learning to use Quicksilver quickly so she can see for herself whether Hayden was alive or dead, but she gets distracted by the realization that she can read the language of the books. I'll admit that this honestly just didn't cross my mind until Saeris thinks about it. I just assumed everyone was speaking some sort of common language used in Zilvaren, but we get some world-building info when Everlayne explains the book and language she was hearing is called Common Fae. There are other languages around Avelia, but Common Fae is spoken by all courts so they can all communicate. Notably, this Common Fae language was adopted in the human realms, and Zilvaren is one of those places. Madra apparently has always spoken Common Fae. Interesting indeed. Okay, guys, I clearly really locked into this because I wrote it so many times, but I feel like the evidence is just piling up for the case that Madra actually is Fae. It would explain so much about her immortality, all the precious metal that she has, and her worry about the Fae, and now this language detail. But I will say, if this is all true, the question is really just like what happened between her and the Fae to separate them in the first place.
So I know we've touched on this. I think Lynn and I may have both contradicted ourselves in this episode, but I still don't think she is Fae because Lane confirms for Saeris that she is human in the very next part of the conversation they have in this chapter, which we're about to discuss. I'm very firmly in the camp of she is human who was or is currently using magic to make herself long-lived. I don't think she's Fae. There's been a few conversations like Madra should have died hundreds of years ago. I don't think so.
Saeris, like us, has questions about Madra, and she asks how Madra could still be alive if she was human, and now how she could have closed the Quicksilver pathways with Solus without being an alchemist, to which Everlayne provides a response that had me giving, honestly, a lot of side-eye. I don't know. I feel like there's like a mixing of truths going on, and we don't know what's real and what's not yet. So she says, we don't know how she did it, but yes, Madra should have died centuries ago. It must be some sort of magic, but we have no clue who performed it for her or why. We don't know how she discovered that the Quicksilver could be sealed with an alchemy sword either. That information was closely guarded by her kind for generations. But you don't need to be Fae or possess any special gift in order to close the doors between our realms. The sword will do it for you. As far as we know, when one pool of Quicksilver is activated, all Quicksilver everywhere is activated. It's joined by some kind of a ribbon of energy. If you take a sword like Solus and plunge it into the Quicksilver, it severs that energy in a way that paralyzes it. Until Solus was removed, every entrance to the pathway became frozen. I will say that this conversation does give Madra an out in the sense that maybe she has an alchemist within her ranks to like help with this, and that maybe she wasn't necessarily Fae, right? Like she's just like a human who has, as you said, accessed something somehow. And maybe she could have used Solus just that one time. But in my opinion, she seems to have way too much specific knowledge about the Fae and the Quicksilver for her to be a regular human being as opposed to Fae. Plus, if she isn't Fae, then I feel like her using Solus conflicts with what Kingfisher said. I feel like that detail is confusing to me. If she's not Fae, then how was she able to use Solus without it burning her? Unless she just like quickly did it and actually is injured, but she's like hiding it. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, she could have, like you said, had someone that was Fae with her who helped her do it, right? Because also, how did she get Solus? I don't think Solus was just lying around. Yeah.
I really go back and forth. I feel like you really could go either way, ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
But aside from the Madra debate, I do feel like it's kind of weird that Quicksilver operates all at once together. That kind of seems like a flaw. Because regardless of who has the power, once you open a Quicksilver portal, literally all of them are opened. no wonder it creates mass chaos. Like, imagine all the possible realms just being simultaneously invaded by other ones all at once.
That seems like a bug, not a feature. That seems like a problem. It also seems like any single alchemist could have made an alchemarian sword and used it to stop the Quicksilver portal. So I'm kind of surprised that it hadn't happened before. It seems like people would be doing that often to stop others from coming to their realm. It kind of feels like the Quicksilver, because of its connectivity, is a shared blessing and burden.
Yeah.
Right? You can use it for trade, you can use it for exploration, whatever. But like also people can just come into your realm. I don't know. That's kind of interesting. I'm curious what the world was like when the Quicksilver was active on a regular basis.
Like, how did they maintain peace? Because, like,
I know,
presumably,
right?
you're always going to have competing interests. Unless there was, like, a system to make sure that everyone was benefiting equally from the Quicksilver portals being open. Like, how do you keep one bad actor or multiple bad actors from not just ruining the whole system?
Maybe it's like a mutually assured destruction kind of vibe. It was like, we want to invade you because then you can invade us, and it breaks this barrier. It's like why no one uses nuclear weapons, right? Because once you do it, you can't reel it back in. I don't know. I want to know more.
Everlayne also mentions that when the portals had been closed, they'd lost some of their scouting parties because they'd gotten stuck in other realms or other places. This is, of course, tragic because I cannot imagine getting stuck in an entirely different place indefinitely.
So now I have to ask, do you think they're really gone, or do you think they'll return and we'll meet them again later? Like, do you think they're all actually dead?
I think it depends on how long they've gone for and, like, where they actually went, right? Because, like, presumably if they went to some realm where there was enough food and whatnot, and if they're immortal and can live a long time, then maybe they were able to figure it out. But if they went somewhere where there's, like, some great enemy that was very powerful and killed them off, then they're probably not going to come back. So I don't know.
They got
Yeah.
They did.
What do you think?
I'm going to say, I'm not going to give a very good answer. I could see that being an important plot line. Like, that is something that Callie Hart can use to introduce a lot of different elements into the story. Or it's just an interesting detail about Quicksilver, right? So we're not far enough into the book for me to decide where it's going to go, right? Because you've got the Madra thing, you've got the blood curse thing, you've got the Corcoran. Like, you've already got so many other major plot elements. It's like, would she introduce one more? Probably not. But it could be like, I don't know, Kingfisher's dad comes back. You know, that would be pretty huge or important. So, yes, they're still alive. I don't know.
It's like
I
a
don't
maybe.
know.
I could go either way on it.
Yeah.
As Saeris asks if it'd be possible for the trapped Fae to still be alive, this leads to discussion of Fae lifespans. We learned that Everlayne is currently 1,486 years old, and I gotta say, that's on the longer end of Fae that we typically meet in fantasy books, I feel like, or at least among the fantasy books that I've read so far. This is like triple the average age, I feel like. Kingfisher's age inevitably comes up as well, and Speak of the Devil pops out of the shadows to clarify that he is 1,733 years old. Damn. Forget Shadow Daddy, he's a Shadow Granddaddy.
Oh my God, at that age, he's more like a shadow great. A lot of greats granddaddy, okay? And also, don't say that. Don't ruin Kingfisher for me, okay? He's daddy.
Sorry.
And that's it.
Sorry. But he's old, okay?
But he is
We're
old
all
as fuck,
old.
though. He's old as fuck. I know, goddamn.
Before Kingfisher takes Saeris to the forge, Everlayne leaves us with an ominous feeling when she says, in answer to your other question, technically the Fae who found themselves trapped when the Quicksilver was stilled could still be alive, yes. But the realm they were visiting was a volatile and dangerous place. It's unlikely that old age killed any of them, but the local clans probably did. That is concerning. Where the hell were these scouting parties sent to? Could this have been one of these hell realms that keep getting brought up? I don't know. Shortly after, in the forge, Kingfisher goads Saeris into asking him some questions, and it starts off flirty from the get-go when Saeris basically asks how well endowed he actually is.
This is a funny thought, not an academic thought. I feel like there were several times in the set of chapters when something off kilter was said, not in a bad way, but it just kind of caught me off guard. And it literally made me do like, you know, when you're reading or watch a movie and you're like, you know, like you're just so caught off guard that you're like, oh my God. And I feel like that happened a lot for me in this book. I remember I was in the kitchen and I was just like, do, 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 do. And then I was like, oh my, like, what? Like, I was so caught off guard by that. Another thing similar to that is when Kingfisher tells Saeris, maybe the issue is that you asked me a question about my, I won't say that, but like a hungry little bitch in heat. And when he called that, I cackled. I was like, oh my God.
Okay, see, I was shocked. I agree. That really shocked me. But I was like, what the hell, Kingfisher? It was so it was so unnecessarily aggressive. Because I was like, what was that for? You just took it 10 levels higher than it needed to be. Or 100 levels higher. I don't know.
He escalated quickly.
Super quickly.
He escalates quickly.
Yeah. Jokes aside, the conversation gets serious when Saeris asks Kingfisher whether it was true he razed an entire city to the ground. While Kingfisher does admit to doing so, the only explanation he gives is that he didn't have a choice. So I really dislike when conversations like this happen where a character refuses to give the full truth because they think it doesn't matter or it's not going to change anything. And that may be true, but obviously context is important for any decision. And so now I'm even more curious as to what he did at Gilthry. I definitely feel that there was probably a good reason for doing so, or at least it's not going to be because he is some evil-hearted fae who just wanted to see a city burn. I'm sure he had a good reason for doing it. Maybe that was something that everyone needed to keep a secret, or I don't know, it's controversial, but the reason for it is probably not what we think.
Oh, 100%. I definitely feel like at some point we'll get the real story. My best guess is that it was one of those impossible choice situations. It was either everyone in this city has to die or all of Avelia will die. And Kingfisher made the hard choice. And remember I don't remember what to call it, not the dedication or the epigraph, but there's that page in the front of the book that was something to the effect of those who live in nightmares so others may live their dream. That feels very coded to the situation, right?
Yes.
Kingfisher had to make the sacrifice and carry the burden so that others may have next choice or, whatever. So obviously we don't know the details, but that's how it reads to me.
Saeris goes on to ask where Kingfisher was banished to post Gilthry, and this is when Kingfisher snarls, "Hell, pray you never have to experience it firsthand, human." So with all the little details and mentions of hell and hell realms, I'm feeling more convinced it is indeed a real place. But in Kingfisher's case, I'm not sure yet whether he really was sent to hell or if he's just, speaking more to the emotional and mental toll that his exile cost him during the last 110 years that he was gone. Because part of that exile involved maybe an inability to block the Quicksilver that's left in him, thus really messing with his mind or something like that.
When Kingfisher talks about it, I think he's referring to his banishment as more metaphorical, not actual hell. But I do agree with you that the hell that they refer to is also an actual place. So I think both are true.
At this point, Kingfisher decides to fast track Saeris' training with zero warning by shoving a piece of Quicksilver into her palm, which, not cool, dude. You gotta give a girl warning before putting a dangerous sentient metal into her freaking hand. Before we get into those events, it continues to become clearer and clearer that there is indeed a big vibe between Saeris and Kingfisher. She's got herself a big old crush on Shadow Daddy, talking about the wild array of different scents that kept rolling off of him and slamming into her. To get back to the diabolical training Kingfisher has started, I of course wanted to note that Saeris describes the Quicksilver as burning her, and it said ice crawled inside me, leaching into my bones. And I only note that because the sensation of it being so cold it burns is interesting. And given, the Winter Palace in Avelia is this freezing cold place, I just find it interesting that the Quicksilver is also ice cold. But I do think it further connects Saeris to Quicksilver as an alchemist because we've gotten the early hints about Saeris being described as her mother's ice storm. As a side note, I did kind of wonder if her mom knew about Saeris' alchemy gift. I'm inclined to think she must have, right?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. I think there's a lot of potential thoughts and theories about Saeris' mom. Remember, I kind of had that crazy thought, maybe Saeris is not related to her quote-unquote mom at all. She's there to be protected. And if that's the case, then I would say yes. Then Saeris' mom absolutely knew. Honestly, I need a few more hints and comments, side commentary about her parents and stuff and her upbringing before I can lay out a working theory. But for now, I'm going to give a soft yes and say that regardless of the actual blood relation, she probably knew that Saeris was special or different.
Okay.
Maybe not to what extent, but in some way, a mother knows, a mother senses.
Kingfisher demands Saeris listen to what the Quicksilver was saying, and after several demands and forcing her to fight through the pain, Saeris finally hears millions of voices that chant, Anrath more over and over again. This notably stuns Kingfisher, and it said for once that cold arrogance he always wore was nowhere to be found. With wide eyes, he looked down at her joined hands, his breath catching slightly in his throat. My first thought was that this is giving Nameless is my price level of crypticness, and I, of course, am extremely curious as to what it means.
Is it time for us to start shouting?
Anrath more!
Anrath more!
Anrath more!
Anrath more! If you're new here, Nameless is my price is a thing from another series that we've talked about on this podcast, and Orin and I, it became our habit to just shout it with like a southern accent. I don't know why. It's just like a fun thing we do. So maybe we will Anrath more! Anrath more! Yeah, it's important. The phrase is important. I think the fact that Kingfisher has a moment of recognition makes me suspicious. This is at least part of what he hears when he doesn't have this relic on. And it is important. It is significant. I don't obviously know what it means, but it has a much broader meaning than just a phrase Saeris hears in this moment.
Okay, so prepare yourselves for some tin hat thoughts. This one's not really a tin hat thought, but my first thought was that maybe Anrath more is perhaps like some sort of anagram for something else. Possibly.
Okay.
I don't know. But my second thought is my theory. And guys, I actually blocked this one out so Addison couldn't see it. I hope
have
you didn't
no idea
peek.
what's about to come out of her mouth.
No peeks.
I
Okay,
didn't.
okay.
I didn't.
Thank you for your integrity. Given that Saeris is hearing the Quicksilver speak to her, what if Anrath more is referring to another realm from which Quicksilver actually originated? Stay with me. We've already gotten hints about the existence of a hell realm, possibly. And I mean, it sort of seems like the Quicksilver has this kind of evil connotation to it. So, like, what if Anrath more is like the hell or the original realm that Quicksilver actually came from or was created in? And it was made as a way for demons or bad creatures in said hell realm to invade new realms or worlds. And then Kingfisher, if it turns out that he has indeed been to a real hell, recognizes this because he's actually been to this place before. Boom.
Oh, I mean, that goes with your theory of like he was in hell.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's what hell is called. Like the actual Fae language word is Anarath more, and it means hell. Maybe. Okay. All right, you little weirdo. Maybe. I have learned my lesson about calling your ideas crazy because I have been wrong a few times. This was very painful for me. It was very difficult for me. So I'm not going to say no. No. I'm not feeling super strong one way or the other. Maybe.
Okay, that's fine. I'll take a maybe.
Anrath more.
Anrath more. Yeah. All right, that was my biggest crazy theory for this episode. So at this point, Saeris realizes that she is holding Quicksilver and that it is currently in a liquid state thanks to her alchemy. Understandably, she begins to panic, but Kingfisher assures her that the Quicksilver can't hurt her as long as he's touching her because he is wearing the pendant. So this was kind of confusing to me because I guess I just assumed Saeris wouldn't be affected by Quicksilver given her interaction with it in the last set of chapters. But this implies that she actually can be affected by it all the same, and that the reason nothing bad happened to her was because Kingfisher put the pendant on her. But that all seems kind of counterintuitive to me because Saeris is an alchemist, and my assumption would be, like, as an alchemist, because you can control Quicksilver, it won't affect you. But everyone just thinks it will because not much is known about alchemy unless you actually are an alchemist. Does that make sense? What did you think?
I think I agree. It does seem confusing. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But the more I thought about it, the more I've realized I feel like this creates a plot hole, a minor one maybe. When Kingfisher first saves Saeris in the Hall of Mirrors, he takes off his relic and puts it around Saeris. And later they explain that she would have died without it to protect her from the Quicksilver portal, right? So, okay,
right.
Cool. But if the Quicksilver can't hurt her as long as he's touching her, then why did he have to take it off at all? He was literally holding her in his arms. So he was touching her when they went through the portal. And it was so difficult for him to be without the relic. So that kind of created some confusion for me. I tried to think through like what the explanation for that would be. My only explanation is that going through the portal means quite literally immersing yourself in Quicksilver, and maybe the act of going through the portal is different magically as opposed to just holding a tiny amount in your hand, right? I don't know. I'm kind of confused on this now, and I'm going to need some clarification.
Same. As one final test for today's lesson, Kingfisher commands her to still the Quicksilver, and with some concentration, Saeris is able to feel it in its neutral state, and then she wills it to go to sleep. I did find it interesting that the Quicksilver tries to protest and says back to her, no, not sleep, not now, slept for too long. But then it does ultimately obey her.
I swear to God, I will quit saying this after this point, but to me, this is just more evidence that the Quicksilver is sentient, right? The Quicksilver knows it has been asleep, aka deactivated for 1,000 years, and now that it's awake, it doesn't want to go back to sleep. It's like, no, slept for too long. Like, let us
be free,
live and writhe and be
awake.
free in whatever sense that is.
And this was really the main part that made me wonder about the Quicksilver having its own agenda, or could it be working on behalf of something else, like another realm or whatever? Just because why doesn't it want to stay awake? Like, for what purpose?
Perhaps hell. Perhaps Anorak more hell.
Yeah, exactly. But, we do see that it can be controlled and overpowered by someone with an alchemy gift. And so, yeah, it's intriguing, as you like to say. To end the chapter, I did find it appropriate that Saeris punches Kingfisher in the face for his little diabolical training stunt. I think he definitely deserved that.
He definitely fucking deserved that.
Yes. All right, so that ends chapter 10. Moving on to chapter 11.
The title of this chapter is Swallow. I gotta say, when I first was reading the book, I made like a face when I saw the title of the chapter. I know you guys are dying to hear my very expert and official analysis of this chapter title. For those of you who thought it was going to go in a dirty place, you were sadly mistaken. It is a reference to when Kingfisher is teasing Saeris about being attracted to him, and she starts choking on the cheese, and he leans forward and tells her to swallow. And that's it. Nothing more. Nothing else. No other connotation.
Are we sure about that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I don't know.
Would you like to offer some more analysis on that?
No, I think we can all use our imaginations on that one, so we'll leave it at that. The next day, Everlayne and Saeris chat while Saeris is stuffed into a red silk dress. I definitely related to Saeris when she said, "Can I please wear some pants?" I am a pants girly like 90% of the time, and by pants I really just mean like sweatpants, joggers, sometimes leggings, basically anything that's stretchy and comfortable and is flowy. I don't even really like wearing jeans these days because I feel like they're just kind of too stiff. If I'm going to wear a dress, then it's something loose and flowy, and there's absolutely not going to be any kind of corset involved with it.
Pants are just prisons for your legs, okay? Just kidding. I'm actually with you. I, most of the time, am wearing something comfy. I'm wearing, like, leggings right now. Stretchy, comfy. Going back to work has been really torturous for me because I have to wear real clothes, and it's awful. It is so painful.
They're not comfortable. I feel like a lot of clothes are just like,
yeah.
Maybe I'm just more sensitive to like clothing texture these days.
You're so bougie, Lorraine.
What? Definitely the opposite of that.
I know. I'm bougie. I really am. Okay. Also, just another kind of funny juxtaposition with setting and language. Everlayne is literally stuffing Saeris into a corset. And meanwhile, Saeris thinks, they were digging into my skin and punching me in places my clothes back home had never pinched me before. It sucked. It's just another, like this lovely, ancient, beautiful fae being put into a corset dress. And she's like, this sucks.
Right.
It's just funny to me. And the last thing I'll say about this scene is I also thought this was funny. After Saeris asks, "Can I please wear some pants?" Everlayne responds with, "We've been over this. You're too pretty to wear pants."
Never.
I don't know why, but that's just such a funny reason. No, you're too pretty to wear pants.
It's like a compliment, but at the same time, it's like, but I want to wear pants.
Let me wear pants. Let me be ugly then. Though
Saeris refuses to disclose what Kingfisher had done to make her punch him, Everlayne warns that he could have done far worse than throwing Saeris unceremoniously down onto her bed and snarling, "Bad human," at her. To be honest, I don't think I'd care if Kingfisher snarled at me. In fact, we can have a whole bed tussle if he wants. Just a thought. But seriously, if Saeris ain't worried about it, then I'm not either. This just adds to the flirty vibe that definitely exists between them.
Lorraine, you bad girl. Bad girl. You're out of control today.
Says the one who loves Kingfisher as a shadow daddy. You like it too. Just admit it. It's fine.
I mean, yeah. I'm not like upset about it or anything.
Exactly.
I appreciated the humor of the moment. I thought it was very funny, and that's it. Nothing more.
Okay. Within the conversation, we do get some background on the family dynamics between Everlayne and Kingfisher. So their mother was originally married to a southern lord, and Kingfisher was born to them. When he was 10, King Belikon sent his father on a mission to Zilvaren, but he hadn't been able to return because the Quicksilver portals had been closed. Belikon believed Kingfisher's father had caused it, declaring him a traitor to the Fae. Kingfisher believes it was Madra who really stilled the Quicksilver portals, and without anything else to say otherwise, I would agree with that 100%. Less than a year after this, Belikon basically forces Kingfisher's mother into marrying him to prove that she wasn't, quote, a traitor. But it seems like he really just wanted her money to help pay for the war against Sansaroth. When Kingfisher's mother arrived at the Winter Palace, Belikon was furious that she had actually brought Kingfisher with her because he really only wanted a son of his own and didn't want Kingfisher to become his heir by marriage. So it's pretty clear Belikon never liked Kingfisher, and I've decided that Belikon is an ass. Their mother was able to get pregnant one more time, this time with Everlayne, but because she wasn't a son, Belikon hated Kingfisher even more and blamed him for, quote, using their mother up, which obviously is absolute bullshit. Unfortunately, their mother died shortly after Everlayne was born. So I was glad, I guess, to get some family history, but it really just made me sad for Kingfisher and Everlayne. Kingfisher lost his father, who'd been falsely accused of being a traitor, and then became an enemy in his own home, only to then also lose his mother, who was like the only protection he had against Belikon, it seems like. I mean, and he obviously didn't deserve any of that, and Belikon is an awful Fae man to treat Kingfisher as he does.
Oh, yeah. Belikon is rapidly moving to the top of my baddie bad list. I think right now Madra is still number 1. Belikon is number 2. I could easily see Belikon outranking Madra very soon if he continues with his douchey behavior.
Yep.
So this download about Fisher's past does present a question, though. Do you think that Fisher's dad is still alive? They never confirm he's dead. It's just said he was sent to Zilvaren and didn't return. But I think he could have easily been imprisoned by Madra. The door's open, so I wanted to know what you thought about that.
Possibly. I mean, I guess if we're going to assume Madra is, cold-hearted enough to just kill Hayden and Elroy, then I would assume she would probably do the same to this Zilvaren person.
Anybody.
Or like this Everlayne Fae, right? Because she seems to definitely dislike the Everlayne Fae, and there's not a good relationship between those two places. So I guess my assumption would be that she maybe killed him, or he's just like living on the run, perhaps. I don't know. I feel like I don't have enough information to say anything definitively yet. Like, all possibilities are still on the table right now until we get more information.
That's fair.
Yeah. And then, as far as like this whole situation and how it relates to Everlayne, I did feel like it was really sad that she blamed herself for her mother's death, stating, according to the king, everything's always Fisher's fault, but our mother's death wasn't because of him, it was because of me. Obviously, this isn't true, but as a child, I can see why it would be hard for her to see otherwise. I also just can't imagine growing up in a world where your own father doesn't like you because you weren't born as the other gender. It seems like she just kind of like lives in this castle but isn't really respected, or like, I don't know. I feel bad for her. Everlayne goes to get them breakfast, leaving Saeris to her own thoughts, which immediately circle back to the Quicksilver and its cryptic Anarath Moor message. She doesn't get far with these thoughts though, because the Shadow Daddy himself arrives wearing some fancy upgraded armor. I thought he was funny when he said, "You like it? I figured some extra protection was in order this morning, since you're now given to hurling yourself at me like some kind of rabid feline."
Something I am really enjoying about Kingfisher as an MMC is his humor. I feel like in a lot of other romantasy books I've read, the MMC is usually very serious, and the humor is at his expense because he's so serious.
Right.
And I really like that Fisher is all shit-talking and sarcasm.
Yes.
I'm here for that. It's kind of refreshing. It's different. It seems like an obvious character trait for a, powerful Fae male, but it really is different from a lot of other romantasy books.
Aside from that, I do find it interesting that his new armor has golden rising suns on it. I'm not sure what it means, but rising suns symbolize hope and new beginnings, so perhaps this is signaling a change for Kingfisher and his future. Saeris feigns annoyance with his presence, but we all know she secretly likes that he's there. especially when his lip starts to bleed and she catches a glimpse of his canines. It said, the sight of them sent a thrill of panic-tinged intrigue through me. But this does lead to a mortifying response from Kingfisher, who says, careful, human, we Fae have an excellent sense of smell. You'd be amazed what we can scent floating on the air.
Stop.
Okay.
I can't do this. I can't.
Honestly, this is like such a hit or miss thing that really depends on the context of the book when it's used in fantasy. And in this case, I would say this is like of the embarrassing kind because you really can't do anything about it. Plus, there's no way for her to level the playing field because she's not Fae, so she like can't do the same. I don't know. It's just in this circumstance, I didn't really like it.
I would literally die on the spot. I would just fall over dead. I am so serious. I have talked about the Fae sense of smell thing before in our TOG episodes and how I hate it because it just, for this very reason, for this exact situation that's playing out. And I was getting secondhand embarrassment for Saeris. I wanted to die. I wanted to die reading this. And I can't imagine being the person experiencing it.
Same. But, okay, as a side note though, if you have the Kindle ebook version, you can see what the popular highlights are in a book. And this was one of them, which makes me wonder why people are highlighting this so much. I don't know. I was like, is this because people have the same thought about it being so awkward? Or is it more important and has like some sort of implication that we don't know about yet? I don't know.
Not loving it. Not loving it.
For real. I did, however, like that Kingfisher turns it into some like flirty banter when in response to Sarah's asking why he hadn't healed his lip yet, he says, I'm going to keep it as a souvenir. I like being surprised. I'm also a fan of aggressive foreplay. This whole scenario was just really funny to me. I really liked it, but Saeris goes on to choke on the cheese that she'd been eating. And at this point, Everlayne returns to help her, but she just makes everything so much more awkward when she says, why does it smell like a brothel in here?
No.
And she blames Kingfisher, and you're just like,
oh,
like, get me out of here. I don't want to be here anymore.
I'm so uncomfortable. I'm getting like, is it still secondhand embarrassment now that we're talking about Emily? Like secondhand embarrassment? Sure, calling out Saeris is enough. Then Lane coming and be like, not even like, what's that smell? She's like, why does it smell like a brothel? I would have just hit the floor. I would have willingly jumped in a Quicksilver pool without protection. I would have been like, this is the end, and that's fine. Nope.
Oh, man. Okay. I definitely think that Kingfisher may have a little bit of a crush on Saeris in return because he does take the fall for the situation before leaving the room. But I also think that in general, this incident just serves as further proof that under the whole asshole facade, Kingfisher is actually a sweet shadow daddy.
I don't know about sweet, but he is more decent than he lets on. I'll give him that.
Later on in the library, Saeris asks to learn more about Quicksilver rather than learning more about Sansaroth and the courts. And she begins by asking how alchemists actually use the pathway to travel between places. Rusarius makes it sound like honestly too easy. They all just make it sound like way easier, and I feel like there's some kind of catch. But he says they just fix their intentions on the place. If they wanted to discover a place rich in iron ore, for example, they'd think about iron ore and let the Quicksilver pull them to a place they wanted to go. Flawed, of course. On a number of occasions, an alchemist thought of a kind of place they wanted to go and stepped into a pool never to be seen again. I feel like this is a classic case of easier said than done. And it makes me worried that Saeris is going to try it and she's going to end up somewhere completely different at some point. Or since we've been told that activating Quicksilver opens all the portals at once, I could definitely see it causing problems in terms of some lurking enemy capitalizing on the chance to slip through as soon as a Quicksilver portal is opened again.
Oh, yeah. I feel like you have to be really careful with your intentions because, say, for example, Saeris is like, I want to go home to Hayden and just guessing, but if Hayden is dead, it might accidentally take her to wherever Hayden's dead body is.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I wonder if this whole conversation is just foreshadowing that Saeris is going to try to go back home, but will actually end up somewhere else. And either Kingfisher will go with her or he will have to get her. It just feels like a setup for like, how hard can it be? I just think about home. And then she ends up somewhere totally not good or something. Yes. I like how they're like, it's incredibly dangerous. Just think about where you want to go. Just click your heels 3 times and say, there's no place like home. Like, no, that's not how it
cannot
is.
be that easy.
Thanks. Also, you can go mad and kill yourself. So, like, but be careful.
Right.
It's weird.
Saeris is, of course, only concerned about how she can get back to Zilvaren, so she asks where the Quicksilver pool is located in the Winter Palace, and we learn it's located down very deep in the bowels of the palace. Nearly every tunnel you come across will lead you there. I did find it interesting that Rusarius' Belikon had the largest Quicksilver pool ever documented built so that he could transport whole armies if needed. And I guess that kind of makes me wonder when it was first crafted. If it was, before the war started, then perhaps he was already thinking of conquest. But if it was after, then I think that would make sense why he would make like such a large Quicksilver portal. In addition, Rusarius mentions that he'd once spent 5 days trying to work out in reference to him discussing the location of the Quicksilver pool in the palace. And then I just find it interesting that the fact that Saeris stops listening feels to me like if she were to go try, like maybe she's going to find problems and obstacles when she tries to go on her own excursion. Or like maybe it's rigged and so that only like an approved alchemist can go use the Quicksilver or something like that. I don't know. So for the next 3 hours, Saeris takes note of any relevant information about the locations of the Quicksilver pools in Sansroth, as well as other courts such as the Galarian Fae in the Eastern Mountains and that of the seafaring Lycian Fae living on a southern island. So now that other Fae kingdoms and groups have been introduced, I do definitely wonder if we'll meet them soon. Or to add to our other thoughts and discussions, if Saeris does manage to find the Winter Palace's Quicksilver pool and use it, maybe she could end up in one of these other Fae courts, or even worse, she'll end up in Sansroth. Something, just in general, that we like to remember on this podcast is that ain't nothing can ever just be easy. So it's definitely not going to be a simple process to get back to Zilvaren.
You're right. Ain't nothing can ever be easy. Yeah, no. Saeris is definitely going to fuck it up somehow. Or like she does make it to Zilvaren, but Nadra is waiting right there and captures her. It just ain't gonna go well.
Yeah, there's too many things that could go wrong. All right, so that ends chapter 11. Moving on to our final chapter, chapter 12.
The title of this chapter is Fox. This is a reference to the adorable yet vicious fox that Saeris and Kingfisher find in the forge.
It's so cute.
I know. Foxes are so cute.
Especially the little white ones. Like, they're just...
I know. They're very cute. That was one thing about moving where I did. I moved like a year ago, but I live in a more heavily wooded area and I've seen a couple foxes and they're just so cute.
Yeah. So totally random and unimportant, but I thought it was such a cute touch that on the first page of this chapter, there are like little animal tracks running across the page. I felt like that was just very fitting and cute. But aside from that, just as like an overall thought about this chapter, I was kind of surprised things got spicy so quickly. I was expecting a much more drawn out situation between Saeris and Kingfisher. As we talked about in our overarching thoughts, while I do love like a true slow burn to build tension, I also have decided that I appreciate just jumping straight to it because it's clear that there's a vibe there. So,
but in a way, I do feel like it's a slow burn, right? They're doing this mean hate flirting thing, but I do think it's going to be a slow burn in terms of like the actual romance and the admitting the real feelings part. So like the physical part isn't a slow burn. But I agree. I do like that they jumped right in. They didn't tease us, right? They admit there's an attraction, and that's almost kind of, I don't know, it's nice in a different way, right? They're attracted to each other, but they can't stand each other, but secretly they're in love.
Yeah.
Or they will be eventually.
Exactly. Kingfisher and Saeris hook up in the forge for a quick lesson. While I am fairly sure I'm just overthinking this, I did find it interesting that it said, Lane Starkid rather smirked like a demon when he realized that I had entered the blistering hot workshop, though he didn't turn away from his task. If there's anything I've learned from our deep diving of fantasy books, is that anytime there's some small description or comparison like this made, it means something, either literally or figuratively. I'm not sure why Kingfisher would be a demon, but I'm going to note it just in case. Perhaps it's like figuratively in reference to how he is when the Quicksilver gets to him. I don't know. As a Fae with heightened senses, Kingfisher can immediately tell that Saeris' attraction has not subsided at all. And I did find it notable that when Saeris denies, quote, I fucking him, he says, it's always confounded me. Humans aren't restricted by the same laws as the oathbound Fae. You creatures can lie whenever you want. You did it all the time, and yet you're all so bad at it. And I guess I was just curious if this means all the Fae are oathbound to tell the truth, or is it just certain ones? Or like, what does that mean exactly? Is telling the truth only a thing between one Fae and another, or does it extend across species, as in the Fae cannot lie to anyone, like humans or other beings?
Oh man, Lorraine, thank God I have you, because I was so distracted by Kingfisher and did not even catch it. Did not even occur to me. I was just like, Kingfisher, say what?
Say it again. Okay, as a follow-up to this point, though, is this why Kingfisher keeps telling Saeris to ask good questions or whatever? Like, maybe because the more specific a question is, like, the harder it would be for him to find a way around answering 100% truthfully.
That is a really good thought. Yeah, I like it.
I'd prefer it if Kingfisher would try, like, a little bit more of a coy approach rather than the asshole Fae approach, because despite the vibe between them, he says, it isn't practical learning the names of humans. You come and go so quickly, I only bother to learn the names of creatures who live longer than a heartbeat. And I was like, oh, okay. But overall, I did enjoy the banter between them, and that Saeris honestly isn't afraid to talk back to Kingfisher. I like that about her.
I also liked the dad joke side of Fisher when Saeris tells him to call me Saeris or nothing at all. And then Fisher proceeds to call her, come here, nothing at all. And I was like, that is such a dad joke. It's like, Dad, I'm hungry. Hi, hungry. I'm Dad.
Right. Yeah.
Fisher's making dad jokes? Like, okay.
To get to the lesson, Kingfisher shows Saeris a crucible containing Fae bone that had been burned to ash. Apparently, Kingfisher wanted to test a theory which involved having Saeris try and bind things to the Quicksilver, like the biological material from Fae bones, to trick the Quicksilver into thinking the living creature passing through it is part of it. I find it interesting that despite the existence of protective relics, it doesn't really seem like anyone knows how they were made in the first place. And that kind of seems suspicious to me, because who made these relics in the first place, and why wasn't the process documented in the past if it's such an important thing? It makes me wonder if perhaps the relics were actually created by the gods or something, and when they disappeared, the knowledge of how to make relics also disappeared, and since then, the relics have just been passed on through generations of Fae or something like that. But I don't know.
I agree that it seems suspicious, and I feel like we touched on this a little bit, but I'm just going to be like really explicit here. In general, there is a lot of missing information about alchemists, the Quicksilver, and the relics. For something that is so incredibly important, it seems strange it wouldn't all be documented. I could see the information not being publicly accessible, but just like flat out no documentation at all seems very strange to me. My explanation for that is that it was documented, but at some point it was destroyed either by enemies or to keep it from enemies. And then the information was lost as the alchemists died. It just seems really strange that there's like basically nothing written down about it. That seems kind of crazy to me.
I like that thought, especially because it's not like alchemy is something anyone can pick up and learn. Like, you have to have the gift of magic to do it. And so, like, what would be the harm having that be documented so that you can teach people who develop that gift, or like when people are born with this magical ability of alchemy, then you can have something to help them with, because being an alchemist is such a rare thing. Before they can test the experiment, Saeris gets freaked out by the sudden appearance of a little white fox. I just think it's like the cutest little animal, and I have a feeling it's just going to be like Saeris' little buddy moving forward. I'm a big fan of characters having little animal besties. I think it's just a fun little cutesy thing. It's very whimsical, I guess is how I would put it. Aside from that, I thought it was funny that Kingfisher immediately like teleports away in a blur of black smoke, but then turns around and makes fun of Saeris for being freaked out by Little Fox when he clearly was too. I mean, he didn't know it was a fox, but he's pretty jumpy for someone who's supposed to be like scary and powerful, you know? But to get back to the teleporting thing, I'm going to add this to the list of powers that he has as a Fae. I don't know if it's unique to Kingfisher or if other Fae can do it too, but regardless, this is another example of the shadows and the smoke being associated with him.
Another excellent point that went completely over my head because I was so focused on how quickly Kingfisher went into protective mode over Saeris.
Okay.
He sensed her urgency. He went into death mode. And he was anger in his eyes, and he was ready to obliterate for her. And I was like, yes, I was here for that. So I was not focusing on anything analytic or academic in that moment. Not even a little bit.
So the whole scene here was, again, one of those... It was a lot of chaos in like the funniest way, because after Saeris stops Kingfisher from killing the fox, it then turns around and bites her. But then going back to being an ass, Kingfisher doesn't help Saeris and instead says, this is a learning experience. There are always consequences to our actions. Your furry new bracelet is a consequence of human weakness. I would have drop kicked Kingfisher back to hell if I was Saeris. Because I was like, help her. Get the box off of her.
I don't know why I was thinking of you typing drop Kingfisher back to hell. It's just really funny to me.
He's so mean.
He really is a prick.
Yeah.
Like that's a really good word for him.
Yeah. It's kind of giving like older brother vibes in a lot of ways. Even though they're flirting with each other, like his general response is kind of like older sibling that's like, no, you figure it out, kind of,
The whole actions have consequences, and this is a consequence for your choice. And I hope you remember that.
Eye roll. Left to fend for herself, Saeris pleads with the fox, and after finding some common ground with their annoyance over Kingfisher, the little fox does let go of her, and then it darts under her skirts. Despite Kingfisher's general grumpy attitude, we do get a glimpse into that sunshine hidden behind the clouds when, with a flick of the wrist, he replaces Saeris' suffocating dress with a new set of comfy pants, a tunic which has many pockets, by the way. The pockets are key, very important. And then last but not least, he also arms her with a knife. So this is when things really start to, heat up. Kingfisher takes his shirt off, revealing a tattooed chest of slick muscle, according to Saeris. Yeah, first of all, hot. Second of all, just like the silver armor around his neck he's worn before, his chest tattoo is that of a wolf's head, which once again just reignited my curiosity over what this wolf means and why a wolf at all.
Yeah. The armor plus the tattoo definitely feels like more symbolic than just looking badass.
Yes.
And fine.
They finally get to experimenting with the Quicksilver, and after many hours, Saeris does manage to transmute the solid Quicksilver into liquid, but they were not successful in fusing the Fey bone with it. Instead, it said the Quicksilver literally vaporized it. So, it really seems like the Quicksilver basically rejected it and knew what they were trying to do to it. Saeris describes how this Quicksilver continued to chant and curse at her as this is going on. So, it really just ties into like, how is this going to work? How are relics created again? And the like. Despite her exhaustion and frustration, Saeris cannot help but continue to admire Kingfisher's beautiful body and face. It's safe to say our girl is smitten, and she thinks of all the beautiful things I had seen. Fisher was the most beautiful of all. Fisher was the epitome of everything that was strong and male and powerful. He was so much more than anything I'd experienced before. He was beautiful. Looking at him made me feel like I couldn't catch my breath.
Aww.
While that was cute, I have a more important thought. I'm going to go ahead and lock this theory in extremely early. If there turns out to be mates in this series, I would like to note that all of this immediate attraction and feeling like literally no one else can compare is indicative of Saeris and Kingfisher being mates. Clocking it early.
Oh my God. Stop trying to make mates happen.
I will never stop trying to make mates happen.
You are such a sap. I swear, if two characters even think about each other, you're like, yep, this is evidence that they're mates. 100% mates.
You get a mate.
Goofball.
You get a mate. You get a mate.
Everybody gets mates. Listen, as a counter to this, I would like to point out we don't even know if mates exist in this series yet. That has not been discussed or introduced.
I did say if.
Okay, so
if there are mates in this series. Okay, I did caveat it.
Yeah.
So
I'm not convinced, but sure, they're attracted to each other. I'll say
you heard it in this episode first today.
We're out of control.
Saeris suggests that she hold the pendant to see if she could feel anything about how it was actually bonded, but Kingfisher refuses to take it off, stating she'd have to come here and touch it. And y'all, we get our first little spicy scene. Woo! Notably, as Saeris approaches, she describes feeling energy and power rolling off Kingfisher and feels a bolt of electricity when she touches his skin. Plus, she describes the scent as being inoffensive and sweet in a way that lights a fire in the hollow of her stomach. I'm just gonna say, if that ain't mate language, I don't know what is.
No on the mates for me, but I will say that is some pretty strong language beyond just really intense attraction.
Right?
I'll give you that.
Considering she can't even smell as well, and she's like, it's inoffensive, it smells sweet. It's happening. It's happening.
Okay.
Once Saeris takes the pendant, she also notes that the crest on it is a design consisting of 2 crossed swords wrapped in thin vines. I don't think we have enough information yet for the interpretation necessarily, but depending on the context, 2 crossed swords can symbolize conflict and battle, unity and alliance, or indecision and stalemate. And just as a general thought, I mean, the history of the relic is important for sure to understanding how it's able to protect against Quicksilver. So,
yeah, I wondered if the 2 swords that were crossing were actually Nimarel and Solus crossed together. And maybe those 2 swords being united, it actually means something significant, or like if it fulfills some kind of prophecy, or it makes them super powerful, or, you know, a variety of things. I also want to note that at the beginning of every chapter, there is a picture of 2 crossed swords wrapped in vines, which matches a relic. And then we have Nimarel and Solus, 2 swords there. So I think it's likely that they're connected.
Yes, I like that. Despite her effort to try and detect something within the pendant, she is basically overwhelmed by Kingfisher's delectable smell. This was another small, seemingly insignificant detail that I'm going to point out in case it does end up meaning something. Okay, I know I keep saying this, but like for real this time, this is when things actually pick up. Kingfisher starts asking her what she knows about Fae anatomy. He mentions being able to detect just how quickly her heart was beating so close to him. And then he pulls her in closer to him.
Yeah, I think my friends was just like,
yes,
like I would just like cuddle up about my book. I'm like, oh no, where is this scene gonna go?
So per usual, we won't be going into details. That is for you on your own time. But it's clear Kingfisher is getting an absolute kick out of taunting Saeris with his spicy talk.
And it's pretty obvious Saeris ain't mad about it.
And neither are we. We are not mad either.
Nope.
I did find it funny that Saeris' first reaction to all of this was to try and punch him again. But then, after another dare for Saeris to kiss him, in an actually unexpected turn of events from what I was expecting, Saeris lunges in for the kiss. A round of applause for our girl for full sending it. Honestly, I was, like we've kind of been mentioning, just kind of expecting the usual tension where like the FMC will pull away and be like, he's so sexy, but I hate him and I won't let myself kiss him, yada, yada. You know, I can't do it.
I hate his stupid, beautiful face.
Yeah. But this was genuinely a fun little twist and it was a steamy kiss. It was a good one.
I remember listening to this part as I was cleaning my house. I remember kind of stopping and being like, oh man, Callie, Hart, what a tease you are. And then boom, the kissing started and they were getting closer. And I was like, oh shit. I'm like, okay, it's fixing to go like that. Chapter 12? Okay. Obviously, you know, it ended, but I was like, oh my God. All right. I was not mad about it.
It's funny how we always get spicy scenes like this when you're doing the most mundane tasks. You're like driving in your car, cleaning your house, cooking dinner, running errands, and you're just like,
yeah, and you're like, oh, I did not think it was going to go that direction. If I would have known that, I would have waited
till later. It's in your headphones, but you like immediately like look around to see if anybody could tell, even though they couldn't.
No, like as my children are like begging me for snacks, and I'm like, mommy's, oh my God, hold on. I just need to just take my headphones off, and we'll come back to this later. Yeah. Every time for me. That or I'm in a Target. Yep.
Saeris thinks, was it temporary insanity, a complete loss of common sense? Whatever it was, it took me body and soul.
Ooh.
Intense. Despite the clear, life-changing nature of this kiss and their attraction, Saeris manages to eventually pull herself away from Kingfisher. Boo! The chapter ends with Saeris refusing to let Kingfisher walk her back to her rooms, and after promising that she'd stay in the forge for One Fist to walk her back, which seems doubtful, Kingfisher tells her to get the Vox Bite looked at and then teleports away in a blur of black sand and smoke. Dun, dun, dun! The end. That concludes our chapter analysis.
So rude. What a tease, Callie, Hart. I'm going to go read the next set of chapters immediately.
Yay. I know, per usual. Now, to conclude our episode, we just have some favorite moments to share.
My first favorite moment is when Kingfisher tells Saeris and Everlayne, chastise me tomorrow, please. Right now, I need 2 things, whiskey and bed. And I was like, ooh, that's so fucking smooth.
He had a lot of good lines in the set of chapters that were just kind of funny. Like,
he did.
Quippy,
yeah, he
you know?
did.
My first favorite one was when Saeris thinks this was a treasure beyond Madra's hoard of gold, more precious than rubies and diamonds. The information inside a place like this was too vast to comprehend.
Oh, wow. Yours was really thoughtful and
I know, quite the
kind,
contrast
and mine
here. It's
was
fine.
My next one is also in the humorous vein. When Everlayne is talking to Rusarius, and she says, "The buttock, hardly a fatal wound. Good thing you were brought back to your books. By the sound of things, you need to brush up on your anatomy."
Should have stabbed him somewhere else. So aggressive from Everlayne. It's funny. I liked it. Okay, my next favorite one was from Kingfisher, and this one was funny. And it's when he tells Saeris, it's rude to stare at a male's hardware.
I
I
roll.
guess.
Oh my God.
I guess it's rude.
I
Just
know,
kidding.
right? I really just love the whole scene when Kingfisher pretends he only uses his sacred magical powers for righteous purposes. I just thought that whole scene was really funny. I couldn't pick a favorite quote because it was just
I agree.
hilarious.
The next favorite one is a shared one between both of us, and it's when Saeris says, "What about you is magic?" And Kingfisher replies, "Everything. My looks, my sword skills, my personality." And then Saeris says, "Your personality is trash."
Well, notice that she only said his personality is trash, not his looks or his sword skills.
True. That is important. Important detail.
My next favorite moment is when they're talking about why Belikon refers to Kingfisher as a dog. Renfis says, "It's because of his deep loyalty to the crown." I just thought that was really funny.
Mm-hmm. Okay, my next favorite one is when Kingfisher says, "I don't do spells. I'm not a witch. Fey magic isn't some kind of cheap conjuring trick human. Our abilities are sacred gifts to be used discerningly for righteous purposes."
My next favorite one is when Lane tells Saeris, "He's a Fey warrior, Saeris. You cannot go around punching Fey warriors." And I don't know why, but to me, it was just giving like, oh my God, Karen, you can't just go around asking people why they're white. And it was kind of the same vibe for me.
Right.
So I thought it was really funny.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just do that. Okay. You can't just go punch Fey warriors. Like, well, you can if you're Saeris Fane.
Also, excellent Mean Girls reference.
Thank you.
Okay, my next favorite moment is when they have their first lesson with the Quicksilver, and Kingfisher asks, "Listen, what is it saying?" And Saeris says, "It's saying you're an evil piece of shit."
I enjoy their banter so much. I really do.
Same. Yeah.
My next favorite one is from Rusarius. You have to remember, I like have the visual and I have the audiobook voice, so it's like all really comes together for me. But I love when he says, "Well, I didn't mean for him to leave again, but I've said it 1,000 times and I'll say it again. No cooked food in the library. I myself only eat dry crackers while working here, and I'm here for days sometimes. And I lean out of the window to avoid crumbs."
My next favorite moment is from Kingfisher, and it's when he tells Saeris, "I figured some extra protection was in order this morning since you're now given to hurling yourself at me like some kind of rabid feline."
My last favorite moment is a little bit more sentimental, but I like when Saeris thinks, "I hadn't seen many beautiful things in my short life, but of all the beautiful things I had seen, Fisher was the most beautiful of all."
Aww.
I know.
So sweet. My last favorite moment to close us out for today is when Kingfisher says, "I'm also a fan of aggressive foreplay. It'll be a fun reminder." Cheeky. All right. So thank you all for joining us for another episode of the Book Dump Fantasy podcast. As always, we're so glad you found us. So please leave us a review and follow us on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube to keep up with us on a daily basis. That's all we've got for you guys today.
And remember, everything about you is magic.
We'll catch you all next week. Bye.
Bye. And stay tuned for a hell of a lot of bloopers, including when we forgot to hit record. Yay. The trick worked, and with the help of Renfis's. Blech.
I forgot how to say that one. Nisanai. Nisanai. I did want to note this at some. Oh my God. Okay.
That this means that Kingfisher wields an ancient and powerful sword. An ancient and powerful sword. My ankle's itchy and I don't want to bend down and itch out while you're talking, but it's really itchy. God damn it. Okay. I said, what did I say?